me put it this way. If you do not slow down this Mars retrograde will slow you down. And you may not like the methods it uses to do that. Hi, my name is Haley Comet, and welcome to my cosmic corner of the internet, where we discuss all things astrology, and today, all things Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer 2024 to 2025 and you. What it means for you and your chart when the planet of action, assertion, and advocacy begins to move backwards through the sky. How will this impact your motivation levels, your conflicts, your intimacy? Mars governs all of these things plus so much more. So within this video, we will break down what this transit means for the collective, do's and don'ts of how to navigate the next few months, how to find the specific house of your chart, thus arena of your life that Mars will transit through, and then we'll take it into our sign by sign, house by house Mars retrograde analysis so that you can know what exactly is coming to the surface from December 2024 until February 2025, and how you can work with this transit rather than fight against it. Trust me, you do not want Mars as an enemy. And if you try to fight against this transit, you can experience this transit as being quite infuriating, quite frustrating, quite tense, quite draining, quite depleting, but it doesn't need to be that way. When it comes to Mars retrograde, it is a time to reflect on what your energy is going towards. It can be a time of rehashing and potentially settling some old beefs, some conflict in the past. It can be a time to reconnect with old flings, old flames from the past. But most importantly, it can be a time to rest, to recharge your batteries, to take the invitations from your physical vessel to slow down and do less as an invitation to do just that, rather than an invitation to pour another cup of coffee or force yourself to do just one other thing or say yes to just one more thing. This is a time to listen. This is a time to take it easy. This is a time to take it slow. But of course, there's lots of specific nuances based on the signs that it's transiting through, the aspects it's making, the territory of your chart that it is moving through. But when it comes to Mars retrograde, keep in mind these key three things. It's important to pick your battles, it's important to protect your peace, and it's important to work smarter and not harder. So our red malefic up in the sky Mars will be retrograde from December 6, 2024 until February 23rd, 2025. And when a planet moves retrograde, I just want to highlight it's not physically moving backwards through the sky. That's not how space works. But from our vantage point here on Earth, due to the ecliptic, it appears as though it's moving backwards in degrees. So Mars on December 6th will station at 6 degrees Leo. And from that point on, it will move backwards in the sky to 5 degrees Leo, eventually re-entering Cancer come January and continuing to move backwards in the sky until it reaches 17 degrees Cancer, where it'll station direct February 23rd. So Mars retrograde is red light energy. And what I mean by that is that it's not an optimal time for taking on new things, taking on new conflicts. It is a time to pick your battles, to prioritize what's ongoing rather than new things, to see where it is that you can simplify your workload rather than adding more. But there is a yellow light period, and that extends from October 5th, 2024 until May 3rd, 2025, as this is the Mars retrograde shadow period. So from October to December, that's the pre-shadow retrograde. So you could have found that there were some hints and foreshadows around what your Mars retrograde will have in store from that period. And then from February to May, that's the post-shadow retrograde. So you may find that there's some closure and completion around some of your Mars themes that came up. And when it comes to this backwards movement, that is exactly the essence of retrograde period, is that it typically is a flip of direction, which is why it's considered to be a more optimal time when it comes to things that are ongoing or from the past, rather than investing our energy in anything new. Now, keep in mind, this is a long transit, and I always say when it comes to astrology, you do not need to pause life. You do not need to stop living. I'm not saying you need to do nothing throughout this transit, but what I am saying is that when it comes to Mars retrograde, it is the most optimal time to look at what's already on your plate, what's already taking your energy, and deeply contemplating, is it worth it? Is it draining more from you than it is giving back to you? Because ultimately, that's the other flip of direction of retrograde. So it's a time more so around things from the past and things that are ongoing rather than anything new. But it also flips the direction from being more concerned with the external world to being more concerned with the internal world. So you may find that this period of time is quite reflective around how it is that you deal with conflict within your life, how it is that you fight to get what it is that you want, how it is that you exert your energy. You may be in reflection around that and really contemplating what on my schedule, what in my workload genuinely gives to me. And I want to underline and highlight that word give because Mars will move retrograde in Leo and Cancer, which in astrology are the only two signs that are ruled by the luminaries, the sun and the moon, the light bearers. The sun and the moon shine. That's what they do. That's who they are. The sun is a star. It gives us warmth. It gives us light, and the moon reflects the light of the sun. And Cancer and Leo contain that same quality of shining because that's who they are, because that's what they do. That's why these signs are known for their very caring, very compassionate, very generous nature. They shine, they give, that's who they are, that's what they do. But with Mars retrograde, it's a flip inward. So it's contemplating how it is that you give that light to yourself. If you are someone where you are giving your sunlight, your moonlight, your generosity, your care, your compassion, a lot to the external world, but running in a deficit within yourself, Mars retrograde is going to make you look at that. And it also asks, how am I igniting that light within me? And you deserve that light because, like I said, Mars retrograde can be a time in which motivation is at a low. We're feeling more drained. We're feeling more depleted. Some of us can feel like we are on the brink of burnout. And sometimes we get to that place because we are doing too much. And Mars retrograde will make that clear within your world around where you have too much on your plate. It's not reasonable, it's not feasible, it's not possible for just one person to keep up with all that your life is demanding of you. So Mars retrograde may ask you to redistribute, to do less. Sometimes we get to a point of burnout because of the volume, the tasks that we are doing too much. But sometimes we get to the brink of burnout because we are doing too little of the things that really light us up. Again, we've got Mars retrograde in the signs of the sun and the moon. And so there can be a contemplation, what lights me up? What ignites my spirit? What allows me to shine and show up? Because when Mars is retrograde in Leo throughout the first portion of this journey, it asks you, what do you invest your energy into that allows you to express yourself? That makes you feel confident, that makes you feel like you, that makes you feel proud to be yourself. Are you prioritizing that within your day-to-day? You love painting. When's the last time you took an art class? You love to dance. When's the last time you choreographed? These things may not be productive to the external world, but they are deeply essential for the maintenance of your own internal world. And Mars retrograde may have you review that. When we think of Mars then re-entering Cancer, Cancer is around how it is that we nourish ourselves. Cancer is the archetypal mom, the nurturer. And so with Mars retrograde, it can ask you how it is that you are nourishing and nurturing your inner landscape, how you are prioritizing the tasks, the routines, the rituals that make you feel more connected with your own intuition, that bring you to a space of emotional balance. And a lot of us are really looking at all of the things that take up our energy and acknowledging, gosh, I'm giving to everybody else besides myself. And that's why I feel so drained. That's why I don't have any motivation, because I'm not doing things that allow me to feel good. I'm not doing things to intentionally work that muscle of joy. I'm not doing things that allow me to feel connected with my authentic, raw self. This can be a reason why we are feeling so drained, and something that Mars retrograde wants to bring to our awareness. And when we think about Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer, the signs of the sun and the moon, this brings a lot of awareness around cycles, around seasons, both within nature as well as within our physical body. And within this modern day and age, it's so easy to mute out these cycles and rhythms of nature and of our bodies. Oh, I'm tired, so I'm just gonna drink more caffeine. Oh, the sun goes down at like 5 p.m. now, but we have electricity, so I can keep working. It's easy to ignore these cycles and seasons and rhythms of life and treat ourselves like we're machines, that we have to keep going and going and going and doing more and more and more. And so I would invite you during Mars retrograde to slow down and listen to your body. If there has been like a check engine light within your physical vessel, whether that's showing up in exhaustion around, oh, I'm so drained, but another energy drink, oh, I'm so drained, but this project's due, so another old nighter, oh, I'm so drained, I'm so drained. The check engine light of your physical vessel is on, but you're just snoozing it, you're ignoring it, right? Maybe that check engine light is manifesting around a sore ankle. It hurts when you step on it, but you're like, gotta hit the gym, gotta keep training, ignoring that check engine light around, ugh, my ankle hurts, just trying to ignore it, pop an aspirin, keep working out. I don't say this to scare you, but Mars retrograde can be the time that check engine light from our physical vessel that we ignored turns into a real problem. We overexert our ankle and we get hurt. We get so exhausted that we get to this point of utter burnout where we cannot show up for anything at all because we have dug so deeply within the reserves. Listen to your body. It is incredibly intelligent. It tells you so much around how it is that you can show up for yourself, around what it is that you need. And so if you find with Mars retrograde you are craving more rest, more naps, fine, listen. If you find that your body is craving something particular, a lot of times your body will tell you what nutrients it needs via its cravings. So if you find, gosh, I'm really craving soup, give yourself that opportunity to make yourself a soup. Next time you feel utterly exhausted, utterly drained, rather than drinking caffeine to trick your body into thinking it has this fake source of energy, see where you can rest instead, where it is that you can nap instead, where it is that you can conserve your energy instead. Because the whispers of our body can turn into screams with Mars retrograde. Sometimes when we're not listening to these cues, it takes an injury or a cold or something of the nature to get our awareness around this is not sustainable. So with Mars retrograde, it's this invitation to listen to those whispers of your own physical rhythms, of even the season around you, so that you don't need this loud wake-up call around where it is that you are overexerting yourself, overextending yourself. And that's so hard to do, right? Because we live in a society, we live in a world that praises more, doing more, hustling more, earning more, working more. And with Mars retrograde, it's an invitation to do less, be more. Do less, but be more. I mean, with Mars retrograde in Leo in Cancer, when you take those opportunities to rest when your body craves it, to play when your body craves it, to create when your body craves it, like when you listen to those cycles, to those rhythms, you can find that you're able to take action when you feel inspired, aligned action, intuitive action. You can find that after you rest, you find that your motivation levels actually go up because you listen to yourself. You grab hold of these cycles and rhythms rather than forcing yourself to be a machine or to operate very linearly. So it's hard when it comes to this period because you have to work through the programming within you around, oh, I'm so lazy, I can't believe I napped for 2 hours, or oh, I'm so lazy, it was a whole Saturday and I didn't even clean the garage. Stop valuing yourself based on how much you do. Like with Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer, start valuing your days based on how you felt, who you connected with, what you created. It asks for a flip of perspective. Because oftentimes when you work that muscle around resting when you need rest, taking action when you feel inspired to take action, you will find that you're in the right place at the right time, truly. Because a lot of times when we force ourselves, we're so burnt out, we're so mentally scattered that we're not even there really fully. Sometimes it's actually better to stop everything and take a moment to give yourself what you need rather than continue to force. When you feel like a shell of a person, you are not a machine. And I know the society makes you feel like you need to be. And that brings me to an important point of this particular Mars retrograde. Before you are an employee, before you are a metric, before you are a number within a crowd, before all of that, you are a human being. You are a human being who has a home. You're a human being who has a family, or friends who feel like family, or pets that depend on you, plants that depend on you. You have a community that depends on you, people who love you, people who care about you. You are something irreplaceable. And I say that due to Mars opposing Pluto. Now, Mars will oppose Pluto 3 times. It opposes Pluto in November during the pre-shadow retrograde period. It opposes Pluto in January during the actual retrograde. And it opposes Pluto in April during the post-shadow retrograde period. But I want to highlight that one of the hallmark aspects of this Mars retrograde is the opposition to Pluto. The first time it opposes Pluto, Pluto is in Capricorn. The next two, it's in Aquarius. This is a major collective shift. I mean, it's literally us entering a new era until 2044. No big deal. Make sure to get caught up on the video to get all dialed into the nuances of that. But when we think of the signs that Pluto is transiting through, Capricorn and Aquarius, these are two Saturn-ruled signs, traditionally speaking. And Saturn is around structures. Saturn is around rules and regulations, things that are more impersonal. Like when we think of Pluto and Capricorn, Capricorn is structures and businesses and corporations. When we think of Pluto and Aquarius, Aquarius is technology and AI and big groups of people, things that are a little bit more impersonal. And so it does feel like there is a story around recognizing that you might have been investing your care, your emotional labor, your creative labor into a corporation or into an entity or into a government or into a structure where you recognize, oh, I'm just a metric to you. And recognizing that in some arenas of your life, within your home, within those that you care about, you are irreplaceable. There's no replacing you. So with Mars opposite Pluto, there feels to be a theme of reclaiming our energy from places and spaces where we are just a number, where we are just seen as a cog in the machine, and putting more of your energy into the places and spaces where you are so much more than a number. You are so much more than a cog in the machine. You are irreplaceable to your dog. You are irreplaceable to your family. You are irreplaceable in the ways that you give love and the ways that you create. And so there feels to be a theme around reclaiming our energy from societal structures and corporations and jobs where we recognize I am just another employee here. I'm just another number here. I'm just another cog in the machine here. And I've been investing and maybe overextending my care, my compassion, my emotional labor to this thing that doesn't really care about me. I'm just a part of something so much bigger. And maybe reprioritizing your life so that you're able to give to the aspects of your life in which you are irreplaceable and the moments that are irreplaceable, right? The sacred moments of home, the sacred moments of play and having fun and enjoying the present moment. There was this like rebelling energy coming through with this Mars retrograde around. Some of us could have this moment where we recognize, gosh, I've been overexerting myself and overextending myself and trying to get validation from this boss or from this company or from this organization, not being able to give to the arenas of my life that I really care about. And for what? And for what? And that could impact our motivation levels. I feel that for some of us, there could be a reflection period during this Mars retrograde around, is this worth it to me? Maybe you've been hustling and grinding and fighting and working so hard, wanting to achieve a particular goal, wanting to get a particular promotion. And there can be an energy with Mars retrograde around asking, what's the point? I'll be forthright, Mars retrograde can be a little depressing. We could be like, what's the point? And I don't share that in an existential way, but it really is asking, it's looking within, Mars plane of motivation, retrograde within. What deeply motivates me? Like, what is it that I want? Because when we look at what society tells me I want, when we look at what capitalism tells me that I want, is that what I want? Is that what lights me up? Is that what makes me feel proud of myself? What do I care about? What is my heart in with Mars retrograde in Leo? What is my soul in with Mars retrograde in Cancer? And so maybe you've been hustling and grinding for this particular position and then you find that your heart's just not in it. You just don't care. And maybe that's your body signaling to you that it's time for a new season within your life. Maybe it's you needing to prioritize more creative matters or prioritize more time with loved ones or something of that nature. But for some of you, I see that there's an energy around listening to your lack of motivation and allowing your goals for the future, your ambitions to shift in response to that. And so for some, there can also be this energy around, gosh, I've hustled and I've worked and I've overextended myself and I haven't nourished aspects of my private life and my personal life in this effort to win this, achieve this, and for what? And for what? Some of us are reaching that place. And so if you're finding that you have a lack of motivation throughout this time, absolutely, maybe it's because you're not prioritizing things that light you up. Maybe it's because you are doing too much, or maybe your body is trying to tell you that your heart isn't in this anymore. Your soul isn't in this anymore. And maybe your ambitions are evolving. And maybe that's because of what society's going through. Pluto in Aquarius is its own video on its own, but what I need to say here is that things are changing and things are evolving and humanity is evolving and there is a need for transformation. And so there can also be this acknowledgement just with the state of the world, the state of government, the state of the structures around us, feeling that those are collapsing. And so with Mars retrograde, wanting to reclaim our energy because of that, around, I don't want to burn myself out to pay all these taxes to a government whose decisions I fundamentally and wholeheartedly disagree with. Or even an energy around seeing how corrupt a certain company is and no longer feeling inclined to put your energy there, wanting to put your energy towards things that will move humanity towards the future, with Pluto and Aquarius, feeling the old way of doing things crumbling and wanting to evolve things within a new direction. Pluto and Aquarius is quite rebellious. Mars, while it's retrograde, will also sextile Uranus, the planet of rebellion. So there's a rebellious quality within this transit around maybe advocating for the world that you believe in, fighting for the world that you believe in, fighting against the world that you do not believe in potentially. But also non-action can be powerful as well. If there are certain places and spaces that you typically give to and overextend to, some people might be drawing their energy back and letting that do the talking for them. Withdrawing from certain organizations in which you fundamentally disagree with how leadership is handling things, or withdrawing yourself from certain corporate environments where you do not align any longer, or checking out from the status quo in order to pave your own way. And with Mars being conflict, this can be a time in which you're really contemplating, who am I fighting against? What am I fighting for? Am I directing my anger towards the true source of the problem? Because with Mars retrograde, there could be a contemplation around where we are fighting or battling amongst ourselves, creating more division, creating more divide, when there is a call with Pluto and Aquarius to really unite forces as humans. And really contemplating what is the true enemy here. Because a lot of times division can really distract us from the bigger problems here. It's like, am I directing my anger towards the right thing? Like, rather than squabbling with people on Facebook because we disagree on certain elements of politics, should I redirect that energy towards something that is more helpful in building the world that I want to, as well as uniting with the people in which real change can happen, rather than wasting my energy squabbling? You know, with Mars retrograde, even beyond collective matters, it is a time to pick your battles wisely. We don't have the energy for it at this time. So really be intentional before you get involved in unnecessary beef or pick a fight with someone. Like I said, Mars retrograde can bring up conflict from the past, and even bringing this conflict up from the past for the purpose of squashing the beef and being able to move forward in some way. This can be a beneficial way to utilize Mars retrograde. And it's wise to really contemplate the root of the anger, the root of the problem. You know, especially when Mars is retrograde in Cancer, this is the sign of its detriment. It doesn't operate well here. And so you could find that you have this mountain of rage that exists within you that you've been suppressing under this guise of, it's okay, no big deal, no big deal, and suppressing and suppressing. And you might find with Mars retrograde that those no big deals, yeah, they're a big deal. Like, this could be an energy around all of that suppressed anger that you've been trying to avoid and that you've been pushing into the shadows comes up. And with that opposition to Pluto, it could show up in very lash out extreme ways. I'm not saying it needs to, but if you keep on suppressing, if you keep on saying no big deal when that's not what you mean, when you keep on acting in passive aggressive ways rather than being very forthright when it comes to your conflict, you could explode. And it might not even be around recent stuff. There could be stuff that you're still holding on to anger about when you were 8 because you never said anything or you never advocated for yourself in some way. And then that final straw, it's like this avalanche of emotions and anger just tumbles out of you. Like, Mars retrograde can be a time of that. And not seeing anger as the enemy. You know, that's where anger gets really dangerous, is when we suppress it and we push it into the shadows. It grows in the shadows. It's a bit like mold. In that way, it grows in the shadows, it grows in the crevices, it grows in the denial of its existence. Because oftentimes we're told that anger is bad. Anger is bad. Do you really want to get perceived as this? Do you want to be seen as difficult? Do you want to be a diva? Whatever the terminology is, the programming within us that makes us feel like we can't be mad. You know, Mars retrograde could be this energy around reclaiming your sacred rage, around I am mad. And maybe that's stuff in your life, maybe that's stuff in society. Like I said, Mars will oppose these very societal, more external planets. So there could be things that you're furious by. And it's no coincidence in astrology that the planet of action is the planet of anger, because anger can be fuel. Truly, it can drive your taking action towards advocating for yourself if it's a personal issue, or advocating for the world that you believe in if it's more of a collective deal of what's going on. You're allowed to be mad. Anger is just destructive when we react in violent ways or extreme ways, but it can be a way to band people together. It can be a way to advocate for the world that you believe in and to protect yourself also. Because when we think of Mars's journey through Cancer, I always think of Mars and Cancer as like mama bear energy, because Mars is how we protect and how we defend and how we advocate. And Cancer within astrology is the archetypal mother. It's the matriarch. And when it comes to what we're typically mama bear like, you know, our children, our pets, our plants, even those that we hold dear, the ones that we're very protective over. Oftentimes, if someone were to do something to someone that we love, we're a lot fiercer than if someone were to do something to us, right? We make allowances, we make passes. And with Mars in Cancer retrograde, there's also an invitation around, where do I need to be my own mama bear? Where do I need to be a little bit more protective over my own emotional landscape, over my sensitivity? If I wouldn't allow someone to treat my child, someone to treat my pet, someone to treat my plant, someone to treat my best friend this way, why would I allow that with myself? And so some of us could really be contemplating, where do I need to be my own mama bear? Where do I need to be a little bit more protective or defensive of myself and of my care, of my heart, with even Mars retrograde in Leo? And just a quick trigger warning, I do want to highlight that I am going to briefly talk about topics related to SA. So if you do not want to hear about that, go ahead and jump to this timestamp. But I do feel that with Mars being the planet of physicality, if you get what I'm saying, a lot of people could be really reviewing intimate acts from the past, especially if there's healing to be done. As during its retrograde journey, Mars will square Chiron, and Chiron governs our wounds, our pain. And with it squaring Mars, this could be our wounds around, you know, masculine energy, it could be our wounds around physicality and experiences from the past, potentially with Mars in Cancer. Because oftentimes what's so jarring about very difficult experiences is that the world doesn't stop for you. You could go through something horrible and just have to go to work the next day. Got to pick up your kids here, got to feed your dog here. Life goes on, it doesn't pause, even if we need it to, in order to heal and deal and feel what happened to us. And so what do? We just keep on going on. We push it into the crevices and we keep on going on. And for some, there can be legitimately traumatizing experiences around Mars themes that may come to the surface during Mars retrograde for us to process and deal with. And there can also be acknowledgments, even if what you feel like transpired was not all in all traumatizing by your definition, there could be experiences where you reflect on how your intimacy, on how your physicality was used, and you contemplate, I don't feel like I gave full consent here, or I feel like there was blurred lines here, or I didn't feel safe to go there, here. And while our mind might get distracted from it, our body doesn't forget. And so with Mars retrograde, a lot of us could really be contemplating experiences like that and what made us feel unsafe in intimacy in some way. Could be a contemplation here. Even with Mars and Leo opposite Pluto, where there's been power dynamics that didn't feel good. It doesn't have to be so sinister even, like some of us just be really contemplating, what do I like in the bedroom? How do I like to, show off in the bedroom with the energy of Leo? How could I feel more confident? How could I feel more safe? How could I feel closer to you as we do? There could be reflections of this during this time. But I would say be very gentle with yourself if you do find that old stuff does come to the surface. We've already witnessed during this time sexuality be a topic of discussion. I think that will continue with the opposition to Pluto, how the powers that be are trying to control sexuality in some regard, or the power dynamics over sexuality, or where individuals are wanting to reclaim their power through sexuality. That will continue to be a theme as we navigate Mars retrograde. And yes, on a related note, this can be a time that flames from the past do come back around, okay? And it's not so much, love and commitment type energy with Mars. It's more so like passion type energy. So, flings from the past, hookups from the past, situationships from the past, like definitely could potentially come back around dependent on which house it's transiting in for you. I also want to bring up here that Mars has to deal with our physical vitality. And so I would really encourage you to be gentle on your body. Again, I'm not saying that we need to quit our jobs and just stay in bed this entire time, but I would say strive not to overexert yourself. Strive not to overextend yourself during this time. Try not to push yourself to the brink of your own limits. If you are someone who is a gym rat, you're always in the gym. I'm not saying you have to cut back on that, but if you feel a little off, if you notice a little tear, really listen. You do not want those whispers to turn to screams. I would also say with Mars retrograde, a lot of us could be really reflecting on our fitness, reflecting on how it is that we like to move our bodies, right? With Leo and Cancer, the best way to get into a fitness routine that you stick with is doing things that you like. So if you are dragging yourself to hit classes and you hate it and you're counting the minutes down, I guarantee there's a way that you can move your body that actually feels good. Like with Mars retrograde, maybe go back to something that you used to do. Like, gosh, I used to love swimming laps. Or gosh, I used to love Zumba. Like, give yourself permission to find that so that you enjoy yourself. Like, give yourself permission. Like I said, this is in signs that are a little bit more cyclical, that are a little bit more seasonal, right? The sun sets, the moon goes through its phases. And so if you are somebody who's very, very disciplined, like firstly, hats off to you, okay? Keep slaying. But what I'm saying is that if you're someone who's so disciplined, you're like 5 a.m. no matter what at the gym, and you like force yourself and you push yourself, I admire your willpower. But what I would say with Mars retrograde is really contemplate, like, do these rules work for me? Like, does this feel good? I'm not saying you have to give up on your workout plans, but maybe see where you can make it more enjoyable. Maybe try swimming like you used to do. Maybe try a Zumba every so often. I think with Mars retrograde in Leo and Cancer, it's a reminder that life is meant to be fun. Okay, life is meant to be fun. And a lot of times when we are drained and depleted and exhausted, yes, we might be doing too much. We have too much on our plate, too much that we are having to expend energy towards. But it also could be we're just not doing enough of the things that we like to do, and the things that make life fun, and the things that make life worth living. And your exercise routine can absolutely be that. But I would not suggest jumping into something brand new that you've never done before. I do worry for the collective who's not dialed into astrology because, you know, this period will extend through New Year's. So I don't know how those New Year's resolutions are going to go. Okay, it's not the most optimal time to jump into new things, but to contemplate old ways of moving your body from the past and how they made you feel with Leo and Cancer. And the last thing that I want to say is that I know it's not always feasible or reasonable for us to pause life. And I'm not suggesting that we should pause life. But with Mars retrograde in Leo, it does ask you to retreat into your throne, okay? Leo is the sign of royalty. So if you are hustling, if you are chasing, Mars retrograde can be an energy where you kind of sit back and let things come to you a little bit more. Around, rather than going out and proving to everyone like I'm a king, I'm a queen, I'm so good at this. This could just be an energy around sitting on your throne, having your crown and shining your glow and trusting that the right circumstances will come to you. Like a lot of times what we chase is like running from us. And with Mars retrograde, if we are chasing and hustling and overextending ourselves, we can find that we leave this period feeling quite drained and feeling like the success that we wanted is out of reach or elusive. I'm not saying you can't have what you want, but with Mars retrograde, it may take you taking a little bit more of a passive approach when it comes to getting what it is that you want, letting things come to you, allowing yourself to sit within your throne, know your worth, keep your head held high, and know that what is truly for you will not pass you. And the things that are truly for you will come to you when you are being authentically yourself with Mars retrograde in Leo. So it's not saying that you need to hide your light, like create, shine, but rather than feeling like you have to pressure and convince and fight and compete during this time, see where it is that your creations can do the competing for you. See where it is that your essence can do the talking for you so that you can conserve your energy doing things when you feel motivated and lit up to do them, rather than feeling like you have to run around and hustle and convince, you know, just sit on your throne. It's kind of the energy of Mars starting its journey in Leo, as well as investing energy intentionally within around the things that do give you confidence, the things that make you feel yourself, okay? I guarantee you're more magnetic when you take time to do the things that light you up. The sun is in the middle of our solar system and it doesn't run around trying to persuade all the planets, hey, orbit around me, please, I have these qualities. It just shines and the right things come. And so with Mars retrograde, if you are someone who has a hard time sitting back and drawing things to you, if you feel like if you do not rush and convince and pressure that these things will not come to you, like Mars retrograde could be this invitation to actually do less, but attract more in some sort of way. To sit on your throne and trust that the right things will see your glow, will see your authenticity, and be drawn into your orbit. Again, we're relearning a lot of what this world and what capitalism has ingrained into us, right? With Mars opposite Pluto. But it could be a powerful way of reclaiming your energy, doing more of the things that light you up, doing more of the things that are conducive for joy. Joy is not an accident. It doesn't just happen. We intentionally choose joy. We intentionally take time for the things that will promote joy. It doesn't just happen. Happiness is not an accident. We have to invest energy towards it. Because I'll be forthright, this transit can be a little depressing. We cannot feel like we have the fight in us to keep going. We can feel like a lot of things in our life are not sustainable for us to continue going at the pace that we've been going in. And with Mars retrograde, that's where it's extra important for you to intentionally make decisions that will align you with joy. And if you have no ideas what brings you joy within this world, think back to what you liked to do when you were a child. Think back to what you used to do to play. How can you invite in more play within your day-to-day? Now, some other aspects that Mars will make during its retrograde journey that I haven't referenced yet. I do also want to highlight that Mars will trine Neptune, which kind of gets into that energetic that I was talking about around there will be a line time. You could protest, you know what I'm saying, like listen to your body and rest if you need. You could be like, well, Haley, then nothing will get done. The dishes will never get done. I'll never be inclined to work out or to go to work or what have you. And certainly sometimes discipline is helpful, but with Mars trine Neptune, it's around the ways that our body and our motivation speaks to us in ways where it's aligned. Like, have you ever tried to do a certain project and it's just so much resistance, so much resistance, so much resistance, and then you shift your energy and there's like a lot more flow and you get something done super quick because you listened and because you kind of flowed with the universe where it was naturally pulling you? That could be a pull with Mars retrograde, especially with it trining Neptune around seeing where there's an energy of ease. Neptune is the sea, right? So like just thinking of a current rather than forcing and swimming against the current around, well, I need to go there. There's an energy around, okay, I just naturally feel inspired to go here. Let me go here. Maybe I'm not feeling inspired to work, but I'm feeling inspired to clean my house. There will be a moment that you're like, work actually sounds interesting. Let me follow the current there. There can be an ask to kind of allow these cosmic currents to guide us. And with Neptune being a very spiritual planet, you can find you're in the right place at the right time. Like you were trying to force that project to work, but when you shifted gears and went to go run errands, you ran into someone at Home Depot. Like sometimes the universe speaks to us through resistance. If we're operating from our logical mind around, no, I gotta work, I gotta finish this project, the universe is purposely making our software slow and it's making the programs crash and it's making us so distracted and there's construction outside because it's trying to signal, go to Home Depot, you're gonna run into Andrew and you're going to restart the pickleball league and it's going to be great. The universe speaks to us in resistance. So what you consider within your logical mind, I'm so lazy, come on, just do the project, I need to get this done, I need to get this done, is the universe purposely putting distractions in your path, putting difficulties within your path, your program keeps crashing, there's construction outside, because it's trying to signal you around, go to Home Depot, you're gonna run into Andrew. You're gonna restart pickleball, right? But we can snooze that because we're like, this is what I meant to be doing. Follow those pulls. You might find that you're in the right place at the right time. Mars will also trine Saturn while it's retrograde. And Saturn is very consistent, it's very structured, it's very disciplined. And this can be an energy around reviewing something that you invested energy in the past. Like potentially there's like a project that you half did or that you half started, maybe even around the home with Mars in Cancer. Like you started to reorganize the closet and you didn't finish, or you started to redo the cupboards and then it got half done. This could be an energy around bringing those things to completion. I also mentioned briefly Mars will sextile Uranus during its journey, which yes, could be rebellious themes, certainly with Mars around where we're investing energy, where we're not, where we're drawing back. But also with Mars sextile Uranus, it's being open to novelty. Like I said, maybe you've had certain physical routines that really aligned for you, but it's just not aligning any longer. And it could be, again, a call for novelty around, gosh, I used to love pickleball. gosh, I used to love swimming laps or something of that nature. How it is that you've done things is not how you always need to do things. Like I said, Cancer and Leo, Sun and Moon, very cyclical. They have rhythms, they have seasons. We have rhythms and seasons. Maybe you're not in your lifting weight season any longer. Maybe you're in your Zumba season now. Maybe you used to work really well in the morning, so you structured your schedule accordingly, and now you're finding, I'm actually much more productive and focused in the afternoon. Like, give yourself the opportunity to restructure your energy. Let go of how society tells you you should do things. Whether that's around when you should do your housework, when you should create, when you should work. If you work for yourself and you feel like you have to work 9 to 5 because that's what everyone else does, follow your own rhythms. Do your own thing. When are you the most productive? Maybe you like to have your mornings free and then the evenings you are laser focused. Like, give yourself permission to work with your own cycles and seasons. And those shift. So give yourself permission to shift as well. And Mars will also square Chiron throughout its journey, which I referenced briefly when we were discussing sexuality, but I also want to say here that with Mars square Chiron, it's also reworking any feelings of guilt, of feeling lazy, of not doing enough, of feeling like it's an inherent flaw, that you're not doing enough, that you're not producing enough, that you're not earning enough. There can also be contemplations around how we've been wounded by, masculine energy within our world, either masculines in our life or our own masculine energy, where it is that we feel like we are flawed in terms of how it is that we get what we want, where it is that we feel like we're not good enough, like we're in a competition with other people and we're losing. With Mars retrograde, please know and believe that the only person you are in a competition with is yourself. Comparison is the thief of joy, particularly during this time. And you don't have the energy during this time to look left and look right at what other people are doing. You can find it's very disheartening at this time to be paying attention to other people's wins. Like, focus on your own race, focus on what it is that you want and how it is that you want to feel. There's enough room for us all to win. So don't feel like somebody else winning takes away from your win. And please know and believe that the only person that you are genuinely in competition with is yourself. Like, Mars retrograde makes that so clear. Like, my only competition is wanting to be better than I was before. So please do not waste your precious energy, which, like I said, we don't have much to expend this Mars retrograde, on looking left and looking right at other people's wins, other people's accomplishments. Stay focused on what it is that you want, because especially when Mars is squaring Chiron, there could just be energies around feeling like a loser, feeling like everybody is getting what it is that you want, feeling like you are unable to get what it is that you want. Okay, so let's take it into some do's and don'ts this Mars retrograde in a very simplified formula, just so you know what exactly is supported during this time and what is not so supported. Do less. Truly do less. See where it is that you can simplify and offload your schedule, your time. Like I said, with Mars retrograde, we tend to feel a little bit more drained. We tend to be a little bit more depleted, especially when Mars is transiting its detriment of Cancer. It just is not operating at maximum capacity. Thus, this is an invitation to look at your schedule and see what is not aligned, what's not pouring into me as much as I'm pouring into it. Where can I say no? Where can I cut back? Mars retrograde is an opportunity to do less. Don't jump into brand new things, especially impulsively. Mars is a very impulsive planet, so there could be things that you feel impulsively inclined to jump into. It's a time to be very diligent around what is getting our energy, because we just have less to expend. If we typically wake up every day and we have $100 of energy to spend all day, every day, and that's all we get. We can't pull from the next day. We only get $100. Think of Mars retrograde as a time that you have $70. You just have less energy to expend. So you're going to want to be mindful when you add on more. It's not the most optimal time for more. Do contemplate anger and resentment from the past. Again, stuff goes somewhere. Even if life just continues on and we just distract ourselves and pretend like it's no big deal, our anger goes somewhere. And with Mars retrograde, it can be a time of it coming back to the surface, not for you to suppress it into the shadows once more, but to see, what is it here to teach me? There's a great parable, and I'm going to butcher it, but it essentially says, when emotions come knocking at the door, rather than saying, go away, go away, go away, and then it has to knock louder and louder and louder because we keep denying it, a lot of times when we open the door, when we allow it in and drink a cup of tea and ask, why are you here, anger? What do you have to teach me? What do you have to show me? We'll drink tea with the anger. It's uncomfortable to sit in it or to sit with it, but it will leave once it feels heard. And so this can be a time of really acknowledging, what is my anger here to teach me and show me? But on that note, don't let anger get the better of you. You know, Mars in Leo can be a little prideful. Mars in Cancer can be a little emotional and passive aggressive. So there can be an energy where either old anger that you've suppressed or just things that are frustrating or things that have been building and getting under your skin, this can be a time that you feel more apt to want to react. And I would deeply advise you to take a beat, respond rather than react. Don't let your anger and the heat of the moment get the better of you during this time. It could lead to detrimental outcomes or extreme manifestations with Mars opposite Pluto, as well as allowing your hurt or your wounding to react for you with Mars squaring Chiron throughout its journey. Do move your body in nourishing ways. I'm not saying we need to stay stuck and live in fear of injury and overexertion. I won't lie to you, Mars retrograde can be a time of injuries and accidents, but it is good to move your body. It's nourishing to move your body. It can lead to you feeling more confident to move your body. So do move your body, but do so in ways that make you feel good, in ways that show yourself genuine love and appreciation for your vessel. Don't push yourself and ignore the cues from your body. Rest if you need rest. Skip the workout if you need to skip the workout. Conserve your energy if you need to conserve your energy. This is not a time to ignore the intelligence of our physical body. Do contemplate your intimate life. And if it makes you feel safe, if it makes you feel seen, if you feel like you're having fun, like this could be a time of reviewing that. And don't, again, numb your body. Ignore your body. If you don't want to do something and you're not sure why, if your body freezes up and you're not sure why, listen. Take that moment. I know it's scary because there's so much pain there, and really allowing ourselves to feel like, why is there so much fear coming up? Why is my body freezing up? Why am I crying within this moment? But sometimes there's something that our body just wants us to know. And it's important to nurture ourselves in those moments rather than just suppress and dissociate and go along with something that we don't want to do anyway. That's advice that I would honestly extend always in life, but particularly during Mars retrograde. Like if anything within you tells you, stop, I don't want to do this, I don't feel safe, like rather than ignoring that, just be like, come on, you're being so dramatic. Listen to yourself, genuinely stop, drop, and nurture yourself and ask, what will allow me to feel more safe? Because that will impact your entire physicality in such positive ways. Do go slow. Be present. When you do less, you are rushing less, right? Don't feel like you have to run from thing to thing to thing, because with Mars retrograde, that's where we trip. That's where we fall. That's where we get injured. That's where we have accidents. It's when we're trying to do too much and do so too fast. Go slow. Be present. Don't take unnecessary risks. With the energy of Mars retrograde, this isn't the time that I would recommend anyway to speed down the highway. This is not the time that I would recommend to lift up a weight when you have not been training for it. Like, it's really a time to exercise caution. So while those are the collective themes of this transit and the rules of thumb to honor for all of us as we navigate Mars retrograde, there are specific nuances based on your chart. I want to mention firstly who will be the most strongly impacted by Mars retrograde. If you are an Aries rising, if you are a Scorpio rising, or you have Mars as a Time Lord, this year Mars retrograde may be more influential for you. I also want to highlight those who are having a harsh Mars aspect are definitely going to feel this transit intensely. So that is if you have a personal planet or angle that is Sun, Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Ascendant, IC, Descendant, or Midheaven from 17 to 29 degrees cardinal signs. That is Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn. Or you have one of those personal planets or angles from 0 to 6 degrees fixed signs. That is Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius. This Mars retrograde may be more of an exclamation point for you. Again, we all have a Mars retrograde story, but some of us it's a comma, it's a little bit more subtle. And for some of us, like yourself, it's an exclamation mark. It's a little bit in your face. And I would also add to that, if Mars retrograde will transit an angular house, it also may be more influential. So if Mars retrograde will move through your first house, your fourth house, your seventh house, or your 10th house, it may be more influential for you. And I'll break down now how you can find which exact house it's moving through. So there's two ways to go about the next portion of this video when I take it to the sign by sign, house by house analysis. The first way If you are newer to astrology or you utilize whole sign house system, all you'll do is you'll find your rising sign, you'll go below in the description, and you'll jump ahead to the timestamp that is listed by your rising sign. If you utilize Placidus house system, I do as well. Sometimes I wish I didn't because it makes these videos so much harder, but I need to be true to myself and my own house system. But if you use Placidus like I do, you will need to find where exactly 17 degrees Cancer to 6 degrees Leo is within your chart. So I'll show you via an on-screen demonstration how to find that. So what you'll do is you'll go to astro.com and you'll find your circle chart presented here. Amazing. Firstly, we'll want to find where Mars starts its retrograde journey. So that's 6 degrees Leo. So we'll find the Leo glyph. It looks like this. It's red in astro.com. And we'll go to where Leo begins. So Leo begins here where Cancer ends. So the blue symbol that I'm circling, that's Cancer. So the line that borders Cancer and Leo, this is 0 degrees Leo. So we go to the first grid mark. This indicates 5 degrees Leo. We know Mars stations retrograde at 6 degrees Leo, so we know this is where Mars starts its retrograde journey. Now we'll want to see where Mars ends its retrograde journey, which is Cancer. So you're going to move backwards from that point and you're going to go to the beginning of the Cancer portion. So that's the side that borders Gemini, the symbol that I am circling here. Amazing. So we're going to do increments of 5. So it goes 5, 10, 15. Mars will station direct again at 17 degrees Cancer. So we want to go a little bit beyond 15, right around here. So from here to that first point that we marked, this is the territory of the sky that Mars will retrograde through. Now it will impact one or even more houses, thus life arenas of your chart. So you'll want to see the pieces of pizza that this portion of the chart encases. So we see for inner planet Janet where Mars will be is in the 6th house and the 5th house. Inner planet Janet would jump to the timestamp where it says Mars retrograde in 6th house, Mars retrograde in 5th house, even if the rising sign noted is not her actual ascendant sign. Now for some of you, it might just be in one house. It might just be in one life arena. And in that case, you'll just want to find the timestamp that mentions that and listen particularly to that house, so that life arena. So let's say for you, it's just in your 6th house. You would find the timestamp that corresponds to Mars retrograde in the 6th house and just particularly listen to the points in which I'm referencing the 6th house. I know it gets a little complicated, but that's how you can find where exactly Mars will be retrograde within your chart and what exact life arenas will surface as a result. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into our sign by sign analysis. So this reading is for you if you are a Leo ascendant and or Mars will be retrograde within your 1st and your 12th house within your astrological natal chart. So there are 2 distinct acts to the drama of Mars retrograde. We have Act 1 from December 6th to January 6th with Mars retrograde in Leo, which for most of you will be the 1st house of identity, of physicality, of self. And then Act 2 from January 6th to February 23rd, 2025, when Mars is retrograde in Cancer, entering your 12th house, which is around subconscious processes, secrets, what is underneath the surface. And so with Mars dancing across your ascendant most likely and dancing in between what's very private and what's very visible, you may surprise yourself this Mars retrograde. There may be things that you thought that you got over, that you realize, I didn't get over that at all. There could be old angers from the past that surface that are asking you to feel them. And again, it could be things that you pushed into the shadows of your subconscious. And it's not so much that you got over it, but life just continued on. But you might find with this Mars retrograde that you are mad. And for some of you, rightfully mad. Because there's also this dance, and for some of you, rightfully mad. You know, I am talking to a lot of Leos, and lions have a roar. Like, this can be a time of reclaiming your sacred rage. And it's not me saying that you need to lash out and scream at people, but what I am seeing with this Mars retrograde is some of you are no longer going to demonize your anger. If anything, you could just be getting mad. If anything, getting mad is actually healthy when it comes to our healing journey, especially if you've been put upon to always be the sunshiny person, to just be the one who cheerleads and keeps other people's spirits high. Well, internally, there might have been things that occurred that were not okay with you on some level, but you could have pushed into the shadows, and now that might be surfacing for you to feel it and to not feel guilty around being angry. It is a step up healing wise. Like sometimes when we're able to take where we feel, disempowered and where we feel sorrowful, if we can reach for anger, sometimes it's healthy to do so because it helps us reach for a more empowered lens around being able to be in a space where we're appalled around what has been done to us and getting into the space around not allowing that anger to consume you, but being able to motivate you around enacting better boundaries or taking better care of yourself, or if anything, allowing those experiences to make you mad enough where you step in your power moving forward around absolutely no more. No more. Absolutely not. And so there can be this energy where even your anger, particularly in Act 2, when Mars is in your 12th house, there can be anger that's playing out in your dreams. Like you could be having these really intense dreams where you're battling with yourself and really your psyche just wanting to signal to you that there's these elements of anger that have been beneath the surface. Because when we demonize our anger, when we make it bad, when we push it into the crevices of our minds and of our soul, that's where it gains power and that's where it can leak to the surface in ways that are not ideal. So I do feel that a lot of you will be doing work during this time around really reclaiming your power, allowing yourself to own your anger or even use it as fuel for creating the change that you want to see. I would also deeply encourage you all to be mindful of burnout to a physical level. A lot of you are going to feel very exhausted during this time. So it's really a time to be gentle with yourself, gentle with your body. When Mars is retrograde in the first house, you may be contemplating how it is that you move your body, if it feels good for you to move your body in that way, if it helps add to your confidence, right, with the energy of Leo. And then when it dips into the hidden house, this can be a time that you feel more exhausted, you feel more drained. And to me, when I look at this, and this might sound a little out there, but I am of the belief when I look at this combination, especially in Cancer, it feels like you need to exert some gentleness over how much rest you're craving during this time because you're doing a lot of work behind the scenes, okay? So if you're feeling more sleepy, if you're feeling more drained or exhausted, it can be that your emotional, your spiritual healing even is just requiring a lot of your battery from you. And so it's important not to judge yourself. And for some of you, you are moving through a period where Pluto has been most likely transiting your 6th house for a long time. I mean, since 2008. And 6th house is our labor, it's our errands, it's our service. So some of you are drained, you're exhausted. And so there can be a deep need during this time to replenish your energy stores. Pluto will transition into Aquarius, thus your 7th house. So a lot of you may have to pick your battles when it comes to your relationships. There can be certain one-to-one connections within your life in which there is this distinct choice point around, do I want to stay stuck in the old role of how I relate to this person? Or is there a way for us to show up in more empowered ways? Because ultimately with Mars opposing Pluto, most likely showing up in the 1st and 7th houses during this time, there could be a time around you getting mad about old stuff that has occurred within a relationship that you are in currently, even within a past relationship within your life. You might find, wow, I'm mad about that. Like my ex in 8th grade really did that to me. Like, are you kidding? Or even looking at your husband over breakfast and being like, I can't believe what you pulled on our 2nd date. Like there could be an energy around old resentments and angers surfacing within your relationship. And there could be a temptation, especially when Mars dips back into your 12th house, around suppressing it and putting into the graveyard of all of the other things that were not okay with you, but you didn't address it, or you didn't approach it, or you didn't stick up for yourself in that moment. And with Mars particularly opposing Pluto, I'm not saying you have to bring up all this old stuff, but is there a way to evolve the way that you relate to this person? If you are finding that your partner doesn't like when you are standing up for yourself, that you are in your power, this can be a time around seeing where the connection itself can evolve. Because I'll be forthright with you, this can be a power struggle energy. Pluto can symbolize, not always, but sometimes Pluto can symbolize individuals that we are partnered with who prefer it when we're taking up a little bit less space, when our roar is a little bit less loud. And with the energy of Mars in the 1st house and the 12th house, it's really being intentional around not betraying yourself, not being your own worst enemy, especially with Mars in the 12th house, which has to do with secret enemies as well as self-undoing. Like those times that we say something's okay, but it's really not. You know, it's adding to our own self-undoing, or the times that we don't stick up for ourselves, or the times that we don't assert ourselves, we don't advocate for ourselves. Like we can essentially be part of our own self-sabotage in a sense. And I'm not saying that's what needs to come to the surface, but for some of you, there could be genuine insights that come up around how you have done that. And for a lot of you, that might come up within your one-to-one. For some of you, that might also come up with work. Like I said, you've had Pluto in the 6th house, and while Pluto won't be in the 6th house at the time of this retrograde, we get kind of the preview of it as it's part of the pre-shadow retrograde. So it could just kind of echo that theme of what's enlivening here. And it could also be contemplating where you feel like you've been taken advantage of. Your time, your desire to serve, your caring nature. I mean, a lot of you are Leo risings. You're ruled by the sun. You are a luminous, light, generous being. And you could have found that your genuine desire to want to do well, or to alleviate the struggles of your coworkers, or to do your best at work, you could have found that the more that you gave, the more other people took from you. And you might find that your rebellion, in a sense, I talked a lot about that in the collective forecast, is around you opting to do less, not staying late at work, or maybe you're even doing less around the home with your family or something of that nature. Maybe you're doing less when it comes to your own business. There's just an energy around reclaiming your time. And a lot of times when we've been pulling very deeply from the reserves, just keep going and keep going, it surprises us how much time it needs to replenish, because we've been pulling so deeply from ourselves. And so just stay with the energy of this Mars retrograde. Allow yourself to replenish your energy stores. See where it is that you can do less. You know, and I know who I'm talking to. Okay, I'm talking to Leo risings. You guys typically like to do the most. But I also see there's an energy around being a little bit more protective of yourself. You know, being your own, fierce mama lion, right? Protecting your cubs, being your own fierce mama bear, right? With Mars retrograde in Cancer. You could really be contemplating the ways that you've been your own worst enemy, in the ways that you have not advocated for yourself. So for some of you, you're going to realize that like you have been your own biggest hater. Like you have been self-sabotaging. Some of you are contemplating how draining your escapist tendencies have been. Some of you have been inflicting damage on yourself, and your weapon is drinking. Your weapon is substances or something of that nature. And Mars retrograde can make it clear how much it's taking from you. I remember reading a quote that basically drinking is stealing tomorrow's happiness. And Mars retrograde may make you confront just how deeply you've been pulling from the reserves, or just how long it'll take for you to kind of regulate yourself to a nervous system level, to an emotional level, to a spiritual level. There could be certain band-aids that you've been enacting in order to soothe certain issues that have been alive within your world that you're recognizing are a cause of your self-undoing in some essence, that are depleting from you more than they are giving to you. Some of you during this time may get a stinking suspicion that you have a hater in your midst, around you, and I would not say that's wrong. Okay, with the energy of Mars retrograde, there also could be like haters from your past that resurface, conflicts from your past that resurface. Again, sometimes it just shows up within our subconscious mind, but there can also be an energy around just feeling energetically that there's certain people who don't wish you well, or sort of like hating from a distance. Again, you're ruled by the sun, most of you, you're Leo risings. You can't shine without some shade. So I do feel that it's important to tell you not to give your power away, or to put too much energy into people who don't want to see you shine. That is truly not your concern. And if there are tendencies to self-sabotage yourself from the things that you really want to do, the ways that you really want to shine, the things that you really want to accomplish, where you fear, what are people going to say? What are my ops going to say? If anything, see where it is that you can alchemize that. See where it is that you can use it as a power source. Using it as fuel, right? Like let's say you want to win a certain track competition. It's like those moments that you don't want to get out of bed, you're so sleepy, like allowing yourself to be motivated around, my ops don't want to see me get out of bed and start training. And allowing that to be fuel around, gotta prove my ops wrong, right? They hate to see me win. They hate to see me shine. Even if you don't run track, if you're trying to blow up on social media, your ops don't want to see you showing up and making your content. If you're trying to get that promotion, the ops don't want to see you shine. Like seeing where it is that you can alchemize that. But overall, I would encourage, be gentle with yourself. You are replenishing yourself. This can be a time of reworking how it is that you view conflict, as well as really contemplating, especially with Act 1 of the Mars retrograde story, what is my heart in versus what is my heart not in? Because when it comes to Mars, it's our motivation. And motivation, of course, ebbs and flows within this lifetime. We're not going to be 100% motivated to do something all of the time. But with Mars retrograde, it could be contemplation around what your heart is in and what your heart is not in. What do you want to do versus what do you not want to do? What have you been told is what you should be doing? It gets harder to show up for those things that we should be doing. Leo is the heart space. Leo is passion, energy. So with Mars retrograde, it could just be contemplating what makes me happy, as well as who am I? What do I want to prioritize? What do I want to put energy towards? I also see some of you are reworking your relationship to anger, as well as allowing yourself to be seen as the villain or the bad guy in some people's stories. I see that. Because with Mars retrograde here, there can be an energy where I've tried to cheer everyone up. I've tried to be the sunny one. I've tried to be the perfect one or what have you. And where did that get me? Where did that get me? Truly, where did that get me? So I'm going to make myself happy first. I'm going to do what I need to do first. And people might have opinions on that, especially if they've been used to taking advantage of me in some way. And so it's just befriending the fact that you will have to be the villain in some people's story in order to be the hero in yours. Because if you people please, if you let people get away with too much, you will become the villain because you will be so resentful and so mad from the inside out. So there's an energy around get comfortable saying no. With Mars retrograde, you don't have the bandwidth to do it all. And people might demonize you. They might make you a villain. You know, you got Pluto on the descendant. There could be an energy where there are certain relationships that come up for review, or just even certain ways of relating with other people, and just a need to transform it because you don't have the energy for it any longer. I'm just seeing for some of you, you've been performing, you've been trying to be what other people wanted you to be, but you're drained now. You don't have the bandwidth for it. And so there's a need to really transform how it is that you show up and how it is that you relate with others. If you are a Cancer rising and or Mars will be retrograde within the second and first houses of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. And when it comes to the focus of your Mars retrograde, the first part of it from December 6th to January 6th, when Mars is retrograde in Leo, is about your finances. It's about your bank account, around what's coming in and what's going out. So for some of you financially, there could be this energy around being quite tired. You know, some of you could be in survival mode currently financially, just trying to keep your head above water, just trying to keep going. And others of you might not be necessarily out of survival, but it's just what you feel like you should be doing or you have to be doing. And with the energy of Mars retrograde, especially in Leo, there's kind of this energy around for what? Why am I working so hard? Like, why am I burning myself out? Like, is this even worth it? Like, that could be a contemplation for some. And with the energy of Mars retrograde in Leo, it's really important to contemplate your values during this time, as second house also governs values, and really questioning if your heart is in what it is that you're doing, especially if you are burnt out and exhausted all of the time. And some during this time could feel like they're in survival mode, like with the energy of Mars, like you are just having to work so hard in order to keep your head above water, in order to keep your bills paid, in order to keep your family fed or keep your pets fed or whatever. You could feel like you're having to really hustle and grind. Some of you, your needs are met, but there's still this more energy that's been alive within your world around it never felt to be enough. You never felt like you could slow down. And with Mars retrograde, I do want to let you know that you can find there's a little bit of a slowdown as it relates to your motivation. You might be like questioning, why do I have to work this hard to keep my head above water, if you're more so in the first example? Or you might be asking, what am I even making this money for? I don't even have time to spend it. Like, my entire life is around fighting for things and I don't even have the time to enjoy my things. Like, with the energy of Mars retrograde, there could just be a contemplation around for what? And I'll be forthright. Some of you could be feeling quite burnt out, quite jaded. You know, when we talk about Leo, it's our heart space. And some individuals could be like, I'm just trying to earn money and my heart's not in it. And especially with Mars opposing Pluto, there can be themes around debt, or even message for probably only one person out there. But even with Mars opposing Pluto, there could be battles around finances, potentially if you're going through some sort of divorce or some sort of lawsuit or something of that nature. And you may feel during this time your fighting spirit is at a low, your motivation's at a low. You might find that you're less apt back to want to go out and hustle and grind, particularly if your heart's not in it. You could just feel a little drained, a little exhausted. And I do want to let you know this too shall pass. And hopefully with Mars retrograde, this can be a time of maybe even past projects that you've invested energy into finally yielding some money, or like invoices that people never paid you coming back or something of that nature, fighting for money and getting it from people who owe it to you or things that you are indebted to. But it is important to pick your battles when it comes to Mars retrograde. This would not be the time that I would necessarily suggest jumping into something new financially impulsively, because you might have less energy to expend. This can be a time to feel more drained. You might have less energy to expend. I also would not make any significantly major purchases at this time. You may regret it in some regard. This can be an optimal time to really look at your finances. If you are someone where you're like, I'm making all this money, but I'm not enjoying it. I feel burnt out. I feel drained. I don't have time to do the things that I want to do out of life. Second house is around values. And with Mars retrograde, some of you could be working some things around financially. What if I sell this so I don't have to do as much gig work? Or what if I can see if I can take Fridays off at my job so I can have more time to do what I love? Like what genuinely means something to me. I just feel this theme coming alive with Mars retrograde, that some of you could feel a little jaded during this time, just with the status of the world, or just like how hard you're having to work in order to keep your head above water, or just this energy around, gosh, I so wanted to make this amount of money, but now it's here and it doesn't feel like I thought that it would feel. I just feel these existential themes being pulled in with the opposition to Pluto, if you're not battling people for finances in some regard. And with the energy of Mars retrograde, it's really coming inward around, what am I really motivated by? What are the values that I have? What lights me up? And if you're not feeling motivated around your current work, like with Mars retrograde in Leo, what are the skill sets that I value about myself? Where is it that I shine? And can I make money doing something that my heart is in, or something that I enjoy doing? Like, is a world like that possible? And with the energy of Mars retrograde, it could be kind of shifting things around, contemplating where you're spending money, as well as how you're spending money. The opposition to Pluto also does pull in some psychological themes. So some of you could be really looking at your tendency to spend money impulsively. Or maybe some of you have a tendency, even if you're now in a space where you're more comfortable, you still feel this fight or flight. You still feel in survival mode. You still feel uncomfortable with finances. This can be a time to look at that. Look at the psychology that's running. Look at your relationship with your finances. You know, Mars is the energy of weapons, and with it retrograde, it sometimes tilts the lens inward and can make you contemplate ways that you might be like self-sabotaging when it relates to your finances. Where it is that you're inflicting yourself with harm? So maybe there's even an energy around not wanting to put your money towards things that are preventative, or that could benefit you in the future, and putting money into things that could create more harm within the future. This would not be the time I would sign to any new loan. With Mars retrograde opposing Pluto, there can be an energy to rework finances in some regard, to see if there's shifts around what you are indebted to. And Mars is very action oriented. So if you find that you get into spaces where you're like, I bought this and now I have regret, and like what within me made me feel like impulsively I need to have this, like Mars retrograde is the time to mind your impulses. My mom taught me this, and I always do this, where she says, Haley, if you see something you like at the store, leave it alone, and if you think about it 2 days later, go back and get it. I do that all of the time. There's so many things that you don't think about after, but if it's still on your mind, it's like, okay, that's something valuable, I should go get it. But with Mars retrograde, really mind your impulses. Pay attention to what comes up. Or even, for example, your dentist wants to do something preventative so that you don't get, a bad cavity. And with Mars, if we're operating in the survival mode, or on what if the worst happens, or like this fear paradigm, we could not spend that money, thus potentially creating more harm in the future. Like, it's really ensuring that you're putting your money towards things that will benefit you, and really being able to discern wants versus needs. Again, preventative dental work would be a want, I suppose, but it's putting your money into things that are genuinely valuable and that will lead to your own betterment. Better than spending that money on something impulsively that doesn't really add to your life. And when Mars moves into your first house in the latter portion of this journey, so January 6th to February 23rd, the focus is around you. And I love this for you, honestly. A lot of you are Cancer Risings, which is a very, soft and nurturing energy. But with Mars in the first house, you are standing up for yourself. You are kind of being your own mama bear. Like I feel like a lot of you are very protective with other people, and some of you are being very protective of yourself. And some of it, yes, might be new conflicts, but some of it might be things from the past. And with Mars retrograde, kind of coming back and being like, actually, no, that wasn't okay that you did A, B, and C. And again, people might have written you off, and they might underestimate you. And with Mars retrograde, there's just energy around, no, you can't F with me. You can't F with me. And I would suggest to be very gentle with your body during this time with Mars retrograde. It's not a time to overexert ourselves. It's not a time to push ourselves. Some of you could go back to an exercise routine that you used to love. Some of you could be really wanting to feel strong and powerful within your physique. Again, I'm just getting this feeling that some of you might have stayed in certain ways of seeing yourself and ways of interacting with the world around trying to make yourself seem smaller. And now with the energy of Mars, it's allowing yourself to take up space. And maybe you won't be sweet all of the time. Maybe you will be a little sassy sometimes. Maybe you'll be a little assertive sometimes. But it's like reclaiming that you are allowed to do that you are allowed to be a little Marsy, okay? I would just say with Mars retrograde, try not to be impulsive during this time. Try not to let anger get the better of you. Be intentional around picking your battles, most certainly. If you are a Gemini Rising, and or Mars will be retrograde within the 3rd house of your natal chart and the 2nd house of your natal chart, this message is for you. And where you begin with this Mars retrograde is really contemplating how you may need to watch your mouth, okay? As Mars from December 6th to January 6th will be in Leo in your 3rd house, which governs the mind and communication. So some of you could have Twitter fingers, so to speak, during this transit, where you could be wanting to impulsively lash out, speak out about something. Even if you're not on social media, you could find this within your daily life, that you're a little sassier during this time. You have a little bit of a bite to your tongue. And I'm sure that your comments are valid, but what I would recommend is to be a little intentional, because with Mars retrograde, things that we say, especially in 3rd house, impulsive things that we say can come back and even maybe negatively impact your reputation or how it is that you are seen with Mars retrograde in Leo. So just be intentional. You know, when it comes to words, it's like toothpaste from a tube. We can get it out, but we can't put it back in. So this is a time to really be intentional when it comes to your words, because Mars tends to make us very impulsive. I mean, you can find that you're very direct, you're very to the point during this time, but your words do have a bite at this time. Mars is the planet of weaponry. So with Mars in 3rd house, your words are your weapon. And listen, I'm talking to a lot of Gemini risings. You guys are quick, you all are intelligent. A lot of you with Mars here, I mean, you could write a comment that makes someone look in the mirror for hours. You could roast someone that makes them genuinely self-reflect and need to go to therapy. Like, there is an energy where you are incredibly incisive when it comes to your language, or you do have a very powerful way of expressing yourself. But just because you do have that power does not mean that you should leverage it to inflict harm. Okay, so I do see that there is an energy around being gentle with your tongue. Even if you're not roasting people or in the comment section, there could just be an energy around being a little sassier with customers, being a little sassy with your neighbors and things of nature, feeling frustrated by your immediate surroundings. You know, I won't lie to you, you could feel kind of frustrated during this time. If you have had any past conflicts with a neighbor or with a sibling, that can come up during this time, or you could just be really contemplating how you're holding on to it around, gosh, I never approached that issue with my neighbor. Because it's not me saying that we need to swallow all of this sass during this time and not saying anything. I would just deeply recommend to be intentional with what it is that you choose to say. Like, just because something's funny doesn't mean that it needs to be added to a conversation. Just because you're feeling mad in that moment doesn't mean that you need to clap back. Like, it is around being intentional around this true gift that you do have for language, but just knowing that with great sass can come great damage. So being mindful around that, being intentional around that as well. If you are wanting to debate with people or just wanting to like fight with people, it tends to be a time, Mars retrograde, where we're all a little angsty. And so it just feels like with this in the 3rd house, you could be just wanting to almost direct it somewhere, like picking more fights with siblings or online, just so you could direct this angry energy somewhere. And what I would deeply recommend, because 3rd house is also our mind, so you also could have this narrative during this time that's a little feisty. Maybe you're being mean to yourself with Mars being the planet of weaponry. What I would recommend during this time, because it's not that you need to suppress all your words, I would just really direct it to a journal. I would go to Target, pick out a little notebook, and I would put all your angry thoughts in that notebook. There's nothing wrong with that. Even having your phone, having voice memos to yourself, recording yourself. I do that all of the time. It does ask for an outlet. I think Mars retrograde is a reminder collectively of the damage that can happen when we just hold on to things and hold on to things and hold on to things. It does ask for an outlet, but I would really recommend have an outlet that other people cannot judge. Sometimes if I'm in a really negative headspace, I will set a timer and I will journal and not allow myself to say one positive thing. I'll just say the nastiest, rudest things that are in my brain, and you'll feel ridiculous by the end of it. You'll run out of hateful things to say, and then you get it out of your system. Because I think with Mars retrograde, it's not acting like we're love and light all of the time. Sometimes we are feisty, we are sassy. It's allowing yourself that release, but maybe not to other people. And even this can show up around just like having certain comments to, you know, your partner or your coworker, just people around you, because you're in a little bit more of an angry state of mind. There's just an energy where you're being a little bit more sharp with your language, a little bit more harsh with your language than potentially you meant to. I also see some of you could be putting energy towards learning a new skill. Some of you could be going back to an old skill that you had to have and reviewing it. You know, Gemini governs the hands. So maybe you're putting your energy towards a hobby, something that keeps your hands busy and gets you out of your mind also, because with Mars third house, you could just feel like your mind is like hurting your feelings quite a bit during this time. So I do want to prepare you for that. And then when Mars enters your second house for Act 2 of the Mars retrograde story from January 6th to February 23rd, the focus then goes to your finances, what you are spending money on, how you are spending money, your motivations for making and spending money. Check in with your motivations. This is when Mars will be retrograde in Cancer. Cancer governs the moon. So some of you could be reviewing how you spend money emotionally, even around wanting to soothe yourself. So just buying something just for that dopamine hit, and really like questioning, what are my values here? Like, is this really something I value, or did I just want to not feel numb for 2 seconds? Did I want to just feel happy for 0.2 seconds? But is it really something that adds to genuine happiness within my world? And it can be a time of really contemplating, like, what motivates me? What makes me want to, you know, earn money? Am I feeling motivated to earn money in the same ways that I was before? This can be a time around feeling a little burnt out from consumerism and just like really asking, like, what is the point here, right? But I would say there definitely is an energy around really reviewing how it is that you use finances, as well as knowing that you are worthy enough to stick up for yourself. And even you are worthy enough to stick up for younger versions of you, I see as alive here. Because second house, outside of finances and values, it also has to deal with our self-worth. And some of you are recognizing, like, I've been my own worst enemy. It's kind of an energy of Mars retrograde. I've been my own worst enemy in the ways that I have not stood up for myself. And I didn't stand up for myself because I didn't think I was someone who was worthy of standing up for. I laughed along with the jokes because I didn't feel like I was allowed to take up space and say, no, that's not okay. You can't say that about me. And maybe I'm defensive when it comes to other people because I see their worth, but maybe I have a harder time sticking up for myself because I don't feel worthy. And maybe there's younger versions of me where I'm so sad that I had to put up with what I had to put up with. And it's never too late to stand up for myself. And maybe I can't go back to, you know, my childhood bullies or whatever situations made me feel like I had to stick up for myself. But if a similar situation comes up that reminds me of these old conflicts, I can validate myself and feel worthy enough to assert myself. And maybe that's tied in with your Mars retrograde in the third house story around maybe it's not so much you needing to watch your mouth and more so you needing to defend yourself in an intentional way, not an impulsive way, but needing to advocate for yourself, observing how many times you've bit your tongue and didn't say anything because you didn't want to be uncomfortable, and embracing your own roar. Like when Mars retrograde in Leo, Leo governs the lion. It's this energy around, I don't need to let the heat of the moment get the better of me, where I clap back and say things that are below the belt, but I also can stick up for myself. And I'm worthy enough to stick up for myself. And I can say what's on my mind. Let me just ensure that it's a way that's truly reflective of who I am and who I want to be, would really be the essence here. But a lot of you could really be contemplating how it is that you stick up for yourself verbally. If you are a Taurus rising and or Mars will be retrograde within the 4th and 3rd houses of your natal chart, this message is for you. And when it comes to the focus of these conflicts, frustrations, and burnout of Mars retrograde, it is concentrated around your home, family, emotional state, as well as your mind and your communication. So let's break it down. So firstly, from December 6th to January 6th, Mars will be retrograde in Leo, which for you activates a very private, personal territory of the chart. This can be a time around conflicts from the past, from your family, coming back around. Like Mars retrograde is the signature. I just think it's funny how kind of transit where you contemplate and you're like, huh, that actually wasn't okay with me. And maybe at the time I wasn't in my power enough to stand up for myself, but now I want to advocate for myself now. And again, you might be the one who's addressing these things. These things might be addressed to you. There also could just be overall vibe of conflict and fights around your family environment in some regard. And with Mars retrograde, it is a time to pick your battles. Like not every issue is worth advocating for at this time, but it can be important to really validate your anger, really, when it comes to Mars retrograde, especially with this in the 4th house. You might find that your anger is leaking into other arenas of your life. You know, when we don't allow anger to be felt, a lot of times it can leak into other territories where we have a shorter fuse, we have a quicker temper. And with Mars retrograde, it can be a time of really getting to the root around why am I so angry? And for some, that may tie into your family of origin or even ancestral patterns. Like some of you, maybe you were around someone who was always angry. So you learned to minimize your anger because it didn't feel like there was space for you to be mad. For others of you, that's the only way that you learned that you could get your needs met is if you lashed out in some regard or that if you were bad in some regard. Some of you might have seen modeled to you that that was the only emotion that was felt within the household was anger. So that's typically what it is that you go to. Again, it's reviewing these patterns and how it is that we've learned to quantify and express our anger and if it's working for us. Because with Mars retrograde, it's just really this reminder that what we suppress continues. It just gets a little sneakier. It gets a little bit beneath the surface, but it leaks up to the surface in little ways. And so if you're finding that you're more mad about things, you have a quicker temper, you're having road rage, okay? Mars will be retrograde in your 3rd house later. Really contemplate, why am I so mad? Because a lot of times like these little things activate it, but there's something deeper. There's something beneath the surface. And I would really look at how it is that you process and deal with your anger, how it is that you process and deal with conflict within your life, because I do feel like there could be parts of it that are ancestral or parts of it that have to deal with your family. For some of you, there's just legitimate battles that you are having with your family during this time and really contemplating how it is that you can advocate for yourself in a way that you're proud of, right? Not stooping to other people's level, being able to express yourself and share your heart and share what's important to you without feeling like you need to get toxic with it or anything of the nature and meet people on the toxic level. There could also be contemplations around your home environment. Some of you could have some conflict with your roommates during this time or like old conflicts with roommates or landlords or something of that nature. With Mars retrograde, it is important to pick your battles, be intentional around what you invest energy into. Like maybe you can let the fact that your roommate left her yogurt spoon in the sink slide, but when it comes to the bigger picture issues around that they never take out the trash and things of that nature, maybe advocating on that issue and leaving the spoon out of it. Like it is important to be intentional what we choose to make an issue. And with Mars retrograde, really contemplating if you've been trying to suppress to keep the peace in the household, really observing, I don't feel like this is a peaceful environment because I am having to take out the trash every single day. This person is not. It's not conducive for the peace that I want to create, for the home environment that I want to honor. Even with it in Leo, maybe even fighting over what art you all want to hang on the walls or something of that nature. There can be conflict and frustrations that are alive as it relates to your residence and who it is that you share your residence with. In the latter portion of this transit, Mars will enter your 3rd house, and this is a time to be intentional with road rage. Okay, 3rd house governs short-term journeys and automobiles, so definitely not a time for road rage or to drive too fast. Again, nothing scary whatsoever, but this can be accident energy, so just be very intentional when you are getting to point A to point B. I would also say, Mars retrograde, be very intentional with language. Be intentional with what you choose to share and how you choose to say it. Okay, you can have a very valuable point, but if the only way that you have to express it is via profanity and raising your tone with Mars retrograde, it may make you review that or contemplate, am I expressing my words and my point of view in the way that this issue deserves? Some of you could be contemplating where it is that you've bit your tongue a little too much, Where it is that you haven't advocated for yourself, where you need to advocate for yourself. And some of you could be really contemplating where you are being a little too impulsive with your language. Some of you are beating yourself up, honestly. Third house has to deal with our mind. So you are beating yourself up. I don't know if it's beating yourself about old mistakes that you've made, or feeling like you're not good enough to learn the new things that you want to learn, or just having an overall narrative within your mind that's quite destructive, that's quite mean, honestly. And with Mars retrograde, it's really contemplating, is this going to motivate me to change my life? Is this going to motivate me to get the results out of this world that I genuinely want? Like, if third house is the radio station that exists within our little noggin, with Mars, it's almost like a radio station that's just telling us how we are not good enough and how we're a failure. And it's really contemplating, is this the radio station that I'll listen to get to what it is that I really desire out of this experience? Like, what will motivate me? Some of you might need to go back to old books that you used to read or podcasts that you used to listen to get re-inspired. So if you think of certain eras where it's like, I used to, wash my face listening to Abraham Hicks, or I used to listen to these motivational tapes. Again, maybe you don't do that any longer, but with Mars retrograde, it's contemplating, hey, that kind of motivated me then. Maybe I can use that to motivate me now. Because with Mars retrograde, it tends to be a time that we're simply less motivated. And with Mars retrograde, you may need to really feed your mind with content that helps you feel more motivated, inspired, and overall makes your brain a little bit more of a gentle place to live. If you are an Aries rising and or Mars will be retrograde within the 5th house of your natal chart and the 4th house of your natal chart, this message is for you. And I do want to highlight to you, my Aries loves, this is more influential for you as you are ruled by Mars. So this can be a time that you are getting this cosmic cue to slow down. A lot of times we can bulldoze to the next chapter of our life or be so impatient to get to the next chapter of our life that we forget to slow down, to be with this particular version of ourselves and to be with this particular version of our lives. Like, there can be an energy around rushing and rushing to the destination without realizing that you're here to be on the journey. And I'm so sorry to be so corny, but truly, Mars will start its retrograde journey in the 5th house. This is around slowing down to sniff the flowers. As an Aries, there typically is this energy around always wanting everything to happen yesterday. But with Mars retrograde in 5th house, it's taking the time and space to enjoy the now, to enjoy the present moment. 5th house governs our hobbies. And so with Mars retrograde, you may go through a period around feeling a little more blah about life, feeling less like desire or lust for life overall. And if that's the case with Mars retrograde, really think about what you used to love, what you used to enjoy doing. Maybe when you were younger, you used to like to sketch or take photos. This can be a time of reconnecting with that side of yourself. Because with Mars retrograde, we tend to feel less inspired. We tend to feel less motivated. We feel a little bit more blah about lots of things. And so it could be a time that the car of our kind of like passion or enjoyment of life feels like it's not turning on, right? And Mars retrograde is asking for a jump start. Around sometimes we have to work the muscle around inviting in joy in our lives, inviting in creativity in our lives, inviting in happiness within our lives. It doesn't just happen. Like with the energy of Mars, it can be around taking this in our own hand to feel joy, to express ourselves, to do what it is that we like, or to do what it is that lights us up. With Mars retrograde, some of you could be going back to a past creative project and finally giving it the oomph to finish it, with the energy of Mars. You could be looking at like half-finished canvases and things of that nature and being like, I just need to do it. I just need to finish this. I would say this would not be my recommendation to impulsively party or to take risks that are not very moderate. This can be a time of overindulging party-wise, over-gambling, being a little too impulsive when it comes to what it is that we like to do. So even use this energy constructively to contemplate, what are my hobbies? What do I enjoy doing? And are they more helpful or harmful for my journey? Do they actually light me up? Like Leo is our heart space. Do I actually feel good about myself when I'm gambling and partying? And if the answer is no, with Mars retrograde, maybe I'm going to draw back some of my energy from that. Like, especially if you feel like when you go out, you waste the entire next day. Like with Mars retrograde, we have less energy at our disposal. So you may need to rework what's getting your energy, what's getting your leisure hours, and what's not. I also want to highlight, for those of you who are dating, I need to be forthright, Mars retrograde, you could have some flings from the past. Spin the block. hookups from the past, situationships from the past. It doesn't feel very serious. And again, you'll have to decipher whether or not you want to jump back into that with these people. I would really be intentional if there is any way of engaging within physicality that is not helpful for your confidence. That would be one thing that I would look at with Mars retrograde in Leo. I'm not saying that there needs to be a connection there. This is not going to resonate for everyone. But if you find that you don't feel good about yourself when you are dating this particular person or spending time with this particular person or engaging in certain activities with Mars retrograde, take your energy back from that. Some of you could even find that you've been in this mode of maybe being a pursuer within dating relationships or chasing someone with Mars retrograde. You might kind of take your energy back. You might be contemplating who you're attracted to in dating, what's working for you in your dating life. Some of you might have less motivation around your dating life. This is also children. So if there is some sort of old conflict with a child or about a child, that can resurface during this time. I would deeply recommend to be conscientious if you do not want to conceive. Not that this is a go-to conception transit, but Mars in the 5th house can make us be a little bit more risky sometimes when it comes to engaging in those sort of things. So that's something that I would be mindful of with Mars retrograde in the 5th house, as well as like genuinely reconnecting with the inner child version of you that is within, especially since Mars will then enter your 4th house. So in the second part of this journey, from January 6th to February 23rd, Mars will be in Cancer, which is your 4th house, which brings the focus to a lot of family stuff. And not just your family of origin, but also ancestry and roots. So some of you could really be contemplating how your way of dealing and processing with anger was inherited. Like some of you could have witnessed how your parents dealt with anger and you took that on, or there could have even been things that transpired in childhood that are the root cause to a lot of your anger within day to day. A lot of you could be really contemplating where you felt like you had to be in this fight or flight zone at home, where it is that you felt like you had to protect yourself or even protect other people. And with Mars retrograde in Cancer particularly, you could be doing a lot of work around remothering yourself, making your home environment a safe place, really reworking the patterns that you observed around anger and advocacy and weaving that into your home or family environment now, as well as potentially old conflicts around roommates, landlords can surface during this time. So if you are a Pisces rising and or Mars will be retrograde within the 6th house of your natal chart and the 5th house of your natal chart, this message is for you. And the focus as it relates to reworking your anger and readdressing conflicts from the past and reallocating your time and energy is truly focused around your day-to-day, your errands, your workplace, as well as around your leisure time, your fun, your romantic world. So let's get into it. So the first portion of this Mars retrograde journey will be concentrated for you in the 6th house. So from December 6th to January 6th, expect 6th house matters to be the forefront of your awareness. And with Mars retrograde in the 6th house, you could be feeling tired, my love. There could just be a lot that your energy is demanding of you. I mean, for a lot of you, this is the holidays, if you celebrate the holidays, and you could feel like you are running yourself ragged, trying to do all of the things, right? Like work could be super busy, but also you have all these errands, you have all this stuff that you need to do. And to be forthright with you, minimal motivation to do it is kind of the vibe. And with Mars retrograde, a lot of you really have to be intentional around saying no. I will not take on that extra project at work, or I will not help with the PTA toy drive this year. Like a lot of you really have to reclaim your time, I'm seeing with the energy of Mars retrograde, around observing where you are leaking out your time around agreeing to too much and then feeling utterly burnt out. Like with Mars retrograde, we really got to know our limits, and you're learning that in more than one way right now, especially if you're a Pisces rising, you have Saturn in the 1st house, you got to get comfortable saying no. And it's hard because I feel for some of you, you've got Leo in the 6th house, you like to make people happy. You like to do nice things for people. You like to be generous. But you will find during Mars retrograde that if you say yes to everybody else, you will exit this period feeling burnt out, drained, underappreciated. This could also be a time where you have conflicts with your coworkers, or even conflicts from the past resurface with your coworkers. This could even be conflicts with people that you employ in some regard. Some of you are really thinking about how it is that you fuel your body, how it is that you take care of your health matters. Some of you could have old issues from the past health-wise return, or a proactive way that you can work with this is reconnecting with old ways that you used to move your body around. You've been trying to do this gym thing, but you kind of hate it, and you think back and you're like, gosh, I used to love dancing when I was younger. I wonder if there's a dance class around. This could be a really helpful time to invest energy in these pockets of your schedule that make you feel good and confident with the energy of Leo, that help you remind you who it is that you are. That confidence really transcends beyond just the dance class. So some of you could be utilizing this energy in that way. And then with Mars then entering your 5th house for the rest of its journey from January 6th to February 23rd, there is a focus around what you like to do with your fun time, what deeply nourishes you when it comes to your time off. There might be certain activities that you do, but there's an ask around, does this truly give to me to a soul level? Like, I might like to drink, but does that really replenish my energy stores, or does it just numb me temporarily? I really like to gamble. I really like to go on dates, or I really like to hook up with this person. Like, is it a safe environment for me, and does it allow me to feel good? Can be a contemplation here. I do want to let you know you may potentially get offers from people that you used to be intimate with. I'll just say it, with the energy of Mars retrograde. Or some of you could just be reviewing the role that physicality has played within your world, the activities that you've engaged in, and if they genuinely made you feel safe, if they allowed you to feel nourished. Some of you could be contemplating past ways of expressing yourself that you used to love to do when you were a child. Around, I used to love to paint. I used to love to do this. Like, some of you are really remothering yourself with Mars retrograde within the 5th house. You're nurturing the inner child version of you. You're also sticking up for the inner child version of you. You might not be able to go back to the childhood bullies or go back to your aunt or whatever made you feel like you had to shrink yourself when you were younger. But I do see there's this energy around sticking up for yourself in ways that younger you wasn't able to. And again, we cannot repeat the exact situations in which we were not able to advocate for ourselves when we were younger. But maybe there's like some situation that surfaces with this Mars retrograde around, typically this is a conflict that I would let go, but I'm thinking of younger me, and I'm thinking of how disrespected I was and how I never got to advocate for myself, so I'm going to advocate for myself in this situation. And when we have this choice point, when we show up in different ways, when we stick up for ourselves in new ways, we do heal that younger version of ourselves. We do make that version of ourselves feel safer. And I think with Mars retrograde in Cancer, it's almost like being our own fiercest mama bear, right? Around, if someone tries to criticize your artwork, and when you were younger, that sort of criticism kept you from creating, there's this energy around, no, I'm going to do it because I like it. There's an energy around allowing yourself to protect yourself now, currently, but also protect those younger versions of you and the part of you that is authentic and wants to express yourself. Some of you could be really contemplating how it is that you deal with conflict with your children, honestly, with the energy of 5th house. Some of you could be rethinking if you want to invest energy in having children in the future. I would deeply recommend for you all to be a little bit more mindful when it comes to protection and things of that nature, as this can be a time that we're a little bit more impulsive when it comes to those things. And with Mars retrograde, you could just be really contemplating the role that your physicality plays within your life. Mars retrograde, some of you could even be reviewing that, reviewing your protection, maybe going back to past protection that you used to utilize. I mean, you have a health focus within the 6th house and then a physicality focus within the 5th house. So maybe some of you are contemplating contraception or going back to an old way of contraception that you used to utilize, something of that nature. If you are an Aquarius rising and or you have Mars retrograde within the 7th house and the 6th house of your astrological natal chart, this message is for you. And the emphasis for you, this Mars retrograde 2024 to 2025, has a lot to deal with your one-to-one contacts, your relationships, your partnerships, as well as your day-to-day and your work. So let's dive in. Where your journey begins, from December 6th to January 6th, Mars will be retrograde in Leo, which for you is the sector that deals with other people. And so you may find during this time that you are dealing with a lot of old conflicts when it comes to your partnerships. Now, there's many different ways that this can show up. If you are currently in a relationship, if you have a spouse, if you have a partner, this can be a time in which hatchets that you thought you buried, you guys are digging back up. This could be a time that one or both of you are turning to the other and saying, you know, I just think it's funny how like old themes might be brought up, old conflicts, and maybe you guys didn't really put these issues to bed. Maybe you just avoided them or pretended like it was okay. But with the energy of Mars retrograde in Leo, maybe it's even impacting how it's damaged your confidence, accepting this sort of behavior. Maybe it's contemplating how it has eroded your passion within the relationship, these issues that haven't been fully dealt with. And a lot of times when we're burying anger, it leaks to the surface in passive aggressiveness. It leaks to the surface around resentment. And there's just an energy with Mars retrograde around really wanting to get to the root of these conflicts and hopefully putting them to bed once and for all. You could also be reworking how you and your partner navigate conflict, if it's healthy, if it's building one another up or tearing one another down. I want to say that because Mars will oppose Pluto during this time, which for many of you will be in your first house. So there can be an energy around, are we being one another's cheerleaders or are we being one another's ops? And some of you may find that there's legitimate power struggles within your union during this time, and super important to alchemize any sort of you versus me to both of us versus the issue of whatever is coming to the surface. And there could be quite a lot, honestly, whether it's old conflicts or even just ways that you've typically processed conflict and needing to rework it in some way. When it comes to those who are single, with Mars retrograde, there could be exes that you're still mad about, you're still holding on to anger. And it's important to rewrite those stories because sometimes if we have dominant narratives within our brain, we will be a match to more of those experiences. So if you're mad about certain experiences and you think, well, all women do this or all men do this, you might find that you attract more women who do that and more men who do this because you're just operating in that angry part of you that believes that to be true. And again, when we think of our mind, not that this is a mind house, but it is a relationship house. When we think of the mind wants to be right. It wants to validate our own perspectives, even if they're not healthy ones. So if you are still holding on to all this anger and resentment around past issues, it could be blocking the way from finding your soulmate, truly. And so with Mars retrograde, this can be a time around putting these conflicts to bed. And you do not need to address these things with the person themselves. And it's not for their benefit. You can do this via prayer. You can call in their higher self. You can do a forgiveness prayer. Like there's lots that you can do to release with love and gratitude and be able to reframe how it is that you view that experience rather through the lens of anger and betrayal around love and appreciation for what it was. Taking the lesson and keeping it moving, but being able to send them love energetically from a distance. Now, some of you might not be there. You might still be in the anger, and that's okay. Like, I think a huge message is Mars retrograde. It's not denying our anger. You don't have to be all love and light if you're not there. Feel it. You're allowed to be mad. You're allowed to have sacred rage around, I can't believe our relationship progressed like that. But it's knowing that holding on to that anger is poisoning you more so than anybody else. And so with Mars retrograde, finding ways that you can move through it so you're not holding on to it. Because I do feel like some of you are stuck. Like there could have been someone who really hurt you and betrayed you and you're still there. You're still wrapped around, I can't believe they did that to me. I can't believe they did that to me. And it's not helping you move forward. And so with Mars retrograde, this is your cosmic opportunity to slow down and really heal that anger that could be kind of built up from within. Some of you could just find the ways that you're interacting with the general public and with other people, just people are a little bit angrier. You might be a little bit more frustrated. You might be navigating with people who are a little bit more frustrated. There might be more conflicts coming up. Some of you, yes, could have exes from the past coming back, telling you how they're mad about this, that, and the third. You might be the one who's sending people texts around, I just think it's funny how Mars retrograde does ask us to be intentional around our anger. It's not denying it, but it's also knowing that you don't need to think about, your 8th grade boyfriend, look them up on Facebook to curse them out for how they treated you. Like, it's knowing that we don't need to dig up people from their past in order to forgive or to heal or to even advocate for ourselves. Like, you might be frustrated with yourself around how much you let slide or how you did not stand up for yourself within past situations, and you don't need to go back to the scene of the crime, so to speak, or to those particular people in order to stand up for yourself. It's just knowing that when you're met with a similar dynamic, you can utilize that as a choice point around advocating for yourself in that instance. So for a lot of you, you're dealing with conflict within your one-to-one partnerships, but you're also dealing with conflict potentially at the workplace, because in the second part of the Mars retrograde retrograde journey, when it enters your 6th house from January 6th to February 23rd, or at least that's when Mars is retrograde, it'll be in your 6th house for a little bit longer than that, it will show up around conflicts around your coworkers, your employees, people that you employ. There could be a feeling of burnout. You might have too much on your plate. You might be feeling drained. You're feeling less motivated. You might not feel as inclined to want to work out. Your body may make you rest if you have not been listening to your physical body. Your body may scream at you that there are certain nutritional shifts that you need to make in order to feel more energized. But you could just be feeling a little bit more blah as it relates to your day-to-day. This can be a time of reworking your schedule, particularly going back to things of the past that will help you feel more motivated. This may be a time of looking at your schedule and having to come face to face with the ways that you are over capacity, the ways that you're overextended, that your schedule is not sustainable, and with Mars retrograde potentially making some shifts there. If you are a Capricorn rising and or Mars will be retrograde within the 8th house and the 7th house, this message is for you. So the focus when it comes to your Mars retrograde story, it has a lot to do with other people, as it starts in your 8th house, which is around shared resources, how it is that we merge and get together, and 7th house, which is essentially around you and I. Always think of 7th house as you and I, and 8th house is the we, the what we create when we merge. So what can you expect? So firstly, if you've been in the midst of any sort of battle over resources, if there's money that is owed to you, if you have been battling some sort of loan, if you've been battling some sort of divorce or some sort of payout in some way, with the energy of Mars retrograde, it can be a time of certainly slowdowns and delays, but sometimes it can be this energy of resolution or being able to put these issues to bed, hopefully, if there have been battles over child support or alimony or something of that nature. I wouldn't be surprised if some of it got a little ugly with Mars opposite Pluto, but with the energy of Mars retrograde, it isn't asked to pick our battles, but also advocate for ourselves and what is owed to us, as well as you might find even if you're not in a battle with somebody else over resources, you might be in a battle with yourself over trying to get out of debt of some sort. This can be a time of needing to really watch our impulses, if there is an energy to jump into a loan or jump into some sort of new credit card or things of that nature. Really important not to do that. If we are married, 8th house is our joint resources. This can be a time of squabbling over money. I gotta be real with you. You guys could be fighting and battling over money. Even if you guys are not in the process of divorcing, this just could be a time around not being able to get aligned on where do we want to spend the holidays? How much do we want to spend on gifts? Like, it just could be an energy around really fighting one another or battling or even dealing with past conflicts around money. Maybe one person, sold your mutual Bitcoin, or one person, bought a property at not the most aligned time. And it's an issue that you guys work through, but there could be resentment around, I can't believe you did that. We could have so much more money if you hadn't done this or done that. It can be an energy of those things surfacing. But outside of these themes, I do want to highlight that when we talk about 8th house, it does have to deal with transformation. And there's something coming through around resisting the inevitable with Mars retrograde, around knowing that something needs to change, but holding on instead, maybe even out of pride with the energy of Leo, as well as knowing 8th house, it goes deep. And so with Mars retrograde, it's also contemplating how deep your anger goes, how deep your betrayal goes, how deep your fear of letting someone in goes. Because 8th house is intimacy. It's allowing ourselves to merge and feel safe to merge. And with Mars here, a lot of you might feel like you have to be in fight or flight. You have to be in defensive mode. And with Mars retrograde, it might be kind of turning this lens inward to contemplate, what would it look like for me to put my guard down and to truly trust another? Am I able to truly trust another and put my guard down? What makes me feel so unsafe doing that? Why do I have this protective layer? And with the energy of Mars retrograde, like really wanting to put rage that's been beneath the surface to bed. 8th house can deal with our shadow side. It can also be what we feel indebted to. So with the energy of Mars, oftentimes when we're mad, we want revenge and we want vengeance and we feel like we can't move on until we do. With Mars retrograde, it just could be this energy around, I'm going to move on because I deserve to move on, and that person's karma is that person's responsibility. Listen, I'm talking to a lot of Capricorn Risings. You guys are ruled by Saturn. You do not need to be the personal agent of the universe dispelling karma. Like, the universe saw it, okay? And you're ruled by Saturn, so you needn't worry about people getting theirs. They'll get theirs, okay? You could be holding on to anger or resentments or frustrations that were never yours to carry. You know, 8th house is how we merge with others. So maybe there's certain issues or there's certain conflicts that you internalize, like it was your own battle. And the biggest thing with Mars retrograde is, you know, pick your battles. And with the second portion of your Mars retrograde story, the focus shifts to one-to-one relationships and partnerships. So this can be a time of old fights, even outside of money. Old fights within your relationships surface around, I just think it's funny how, I just think it's weird how on our second date you did this. You guys could be squabbling and bickering a lot more during this time, and there could be a deeper root cause. Like, it could be little comments and little snarky things to the surface level, but there's something deeper. And so I would encourage you during this Mars retrograde to really ask yourself as well as your partner, what are we really fighting about? What are we really mad about? And let's get to that so we're not squabbling and beefing any longer. And if you are single, this could be a time of processing past hurt, betrayal, and anger within your intimate one-to-one connections. This could be a time that these people do pop back up into your orbit in some way. Their energy comes back in some way or fashion, whether it's even just dreaming about them, feeling their energy, thinking about them, something of that nature. And you might be feeling mad. You know, a lot of times when we're in the relationship, we just kind of make things normal that are not normal. And sometimes it takes this defrosting period where we allow what transpired to come to the surface and we're like, hang on, that was messed up. I cannot believe I allowed that. And with Mars retrograde, I'm not saying you have to allow that anger to consume you, but there could be an ask with Mars retrograde to really feel it, to nurture yourself through it with Mars retrograde in Cancer, to allow yourself to feel what comes up and not judge yourself for still being mad or still not totally being over something. You know, a lot of you are Capricorn Risings, which are very linear. So it could be an energy around, I gave myself a deadline. I should have already been over this. But, you know, when it comes to these sort of experiences, especially if it's experiences that are held in the body, you know, with Mars, it takes time. It takes time, and it does take us to feel what's coming up. And there could be old anger surfacing. There also just could be an energy around reworking how it is that you typically approach other people or pursue relationships. That can be a focus. If you are a Sagittarius Rising, or Mars will be retrograde within your 9th and 8th houses, this message is for you. And so when it comes to the first part of your Mars retrograde story, when Mars is retrograde in Leo from December 6th to January 6th, the focus in this is really around your big picture of your life. And if you're investing your energy in the places and spaces that will really contribute to the big picture of your life. It's like the energy of the 80-20 rule, in that 20% of our actions typically make up 80% of our results. And so it's looking at that in terms of your life, in terms of the direction that you want to go in, the directions that feel meaningful and inspiring to you. You might look at that and be like, I don't have the time or the bandwidth to put energy towards what it is that I really want to do with this experience. You know, some of you could get a little existential in the latter portion of this Mars retrograde journey because it'll dip into your 8th house. And so some of you could be really just feeling restless around this desire to want to live while you're alive and explore and adventure and make memories. And there just could be a frustration around, so much of my life is consumed around these things that don't matter, around work and getting through the days. I want to put more of my energy towards more of what matters. And with Mars retrograde, you could be in reflection of that around, why haven't I learned French? Why haven't I traveled to France? Why haven't I gotten my master's? Like, there just could be an energy around contemplating where it is that you have not been bucketing your energy intentionally. You also could have squabbles with religious institutions, spiritual communities, things of that nature, churches, or even dealing with repressed anger that could have come up as a result of these institutions. Like, there could have been certain experiences at college or university that were not okay with you, and now you realize that was messed up that my professor said that or encouraged that. Or even defrosting, you know, anger that could have been frozen beneath the surface around what your church told you during your upbringing or things of that nature. And with Mars retrograde, kind of allowing yourself to feel that anger if it does surface during this time. Some of you can have delays as it relates to travel. This would not be my top pick for like impulsively traveling, but it can be an energy to revisit, you know, your travel aspirations, your academic aspirations, your publishing aspirations from the past, and maybe allocate your energy in order to put more energy towards these big picture arenas of your life. And then in the latter portion of this transit, Mars will dip back into Cancer from January 6th to February 23rd, thus entering your 8th house. So that's where I was saying it gets a little existential, this Mars retrograde, around what's it all for? What's the point? Like, why am I alive? Like, a lot of you could really be contemplating that. And ultimately with Mars retrograde, it's around pulling that motivation from within, finding your why of what keeps you going in those moments that you feel disheartened and dejected. Like, only you can decide what your why is. Only you can affirm yourself in those moments that you feel low on motivation, low on energy. And with Mars retrograde in the 8th house has to deal with our legacy. So it could be an energy around what will remain when I'm not here. And how can I put my energy towards the projects that really I want to be part of my legacy, even part of my familial legacy with Mars being retrograde in Cancer. And with the energy of 8th house, I do want to highlight on the family themes of Cancer. There can be some squabbles over finances, maybe family inheritances of some sort, maybe alimony, child support, money that's owed to you, debt. With Mars retrograde, there can be a return of conflicts in the past coming back, or potentially reworking something around these arenas. If you are a Scorpio rising and or Mars will be retrograde within the 10th and 9th houses of your chart, this message is for you. And I want to highlight that if you are a Scorpio ascendant, this will be a more impactful transit for you, as from a traditional point of view, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio. So this is your ruling planet, which means you will most certainly feel this transit. Where will you feel it? So it'll be concentrated within the realms of career, public persona, reputation, as well as higher learning, travel, academia. Let's get into it. So part 1 of your Mars retrograde story will be from December 6th to January 6th when Mars is retrograde in Leo. For you, this activates and enlivens your 10th house, which is around career. And so a lot of you are investing a lot of energy towards your career, but you could be feeling a little drained. Like, you could feel a little exhausted. Like, Mars is kind of where we have more battles and conflicts. You can feel like you're having to battle with your boss a little bit more. You're having more troublesome projects on your plate. You're having to work really hard. And honestly, with Mars retrograde, you might feel like your motivation to do so is a little empty. Like, you may feel like you just don't have the motivation to keep going, or at least keep going at this pace. If you feel like you have been operating and working at an unsustainable rate, this can be a time of slowing down, of seeing where it is that you can offload or delegate in order to reclaim some of your life back, because it just feels like some of you are being run ragged, especially with Mars opposing Pluto throughout its journey. You know, a lot of you are Scorpio rising, so you tend to have a one-track mind, and you get very obsessive when you're in the zone. But with Mars retrograde, it really asks you at what cost, and you might feel like your body is asking you to slow down, your spirit's asking you to slow down. Because burnout shows up on many different levels. It's not only just our physicality, like mentally feeling more stressed and more scattered, even spiritually, just feeling like we have less joy to expend. These are all clues that it's time to slow down, and it's not a sign of weakness. And some of you may be empowered during this time to offload or to delegate. You may have to stick up for yourself to a boss. I definitely can see that there can be conflicts and battles around bosses and authority figures. It would not be a time that I would recommend to allow your impulses to win out. In fact, I would be very intentional with your impulses and with your anger. But with Mars retrograde, really pulling that strength from within around standing up for yourself. You know, you've got Leo in the 10th house, so you are here to manage, you're here to lead, you're here to create, you're here to inspire. And you can't do that if you're operating from an empty tank. And so with Mars retrograde, it's contemplating what will allow me to feel more renewed. Do I need to do more projects that I like? Do I need to step into my leadership in order to empower my team? Do I need to shift my time and energy to focus more to matters of the home? Mars will oppose Pluto. This can be a time of reworking that in some way. And maybe for some of you, if you work for yourself with Mars retrograde, you could have more troublesome clients, projects, things of that nature. And you may need to enforce or stick up for yourself in some way around, maybe there's certain projects that you typically go above and beyond because you don't want it to damage your reputation. But there's an energy with Mars retrograde around, I can't go above and beyond here, right? And I need to kind of demand the respect that I'm owed here, not in a disrespectful way, but in a way around really advocating for myself and knowing my worth to a public plane. You know, some of you could have competitors from the past coming back, people who tried to damage our reputation from the past come back and try to harm our reputation more. So that would be something that I would be intentional about. And you could have some conflict with authority figures and bosses during this time. But in the second part of Mars retrograde, the focus then shifts to your travel, your higher learning, and your big picture of your life, essentially. And this will be from January 6th until February 23rd. And here you might be really contemplating what will recharge your battery, and not just your physical battery, but your soul battery. Like some of you could be really thinking of a past retreat that you went on or somewhere that you traveled that gave you a lot of peace that you're wanting to return back to. You could be really contemplating what your why is, what keeps you motivated during these times that you feel more drained, you feel more disheartened. You know, I'm also picking up on a storyline that some of you could be applying a lot for new positions and like trying to level up and trying to get ahead. And with Mars retrograde in the 9th, you could also contemplate, do I need to go back to school? Is there other academic opportunities that I need to look towards? Do I want to travel? Do I want to work abroad? Like those could be contemplations, especially if they are desires from the past in some regard coming back. There also could be angers that you've suppressed from past religious experiences, from past academic experiences that you've been holding on to. There also could be a desire to invest more of your energy in the spiritual modalities that make you feel more connected to your intuition. So if you're feeling disheartened, if you're feeling disconnected with who it is that you are, with Mars retrograde in Cancer could ask you to reconnect to your morning routine, you know, start pulling tarot cards again, or dive back into astrology, like remind yourself who it is that you are as a soul. With Mars retrograde, we have to pull that motivation from within. So it can be a time that we feel a little bit more disheartened or a little bit more drained. But I see with Mars retrograde in the 9th house, pulling from your spiritual reserves will help you power through this transit. If you are a Libra rising and or Mars will be retrograde within your 10th and 11th houses, this message is for you. And if you are a Libra ascendant, Libra is an energy that's all about keeping the peace. But the energy of Mars retrograde, there could be some conflicts abounding. And the territory of said conflicts are around your friendship groups, your community, as well as your career. So let's get into it. So this transit begins December 6th in the sign Leo. For you, this activates your 11th house. And there can be some squabbles with friends, particularly old squabbles with friends. You could have some old conflicts kind of dug up during this time around certain things that you tried to bury, but the longer you sit with it, the more you're like, no, I feel disrespected. Like, what did you mean by that? Or do I need to stand up for myself in this arena? You could also have one of your friends come to you with something where it's like, I tried to put this to rest, but I'm still mad about it. Like, can we settle this? Can we squash this? This also could be an energy where if you are not addressing it proactively, those resentments could be surfacing within your friendships around making certain comments or making certain digs without addressing the root issue of why you are so annoyed with this person. And even if it's a friend who's not in your life with Mars retrograde, you could be processing some old anger around that was not okay. Like I was trying to keep the peace, like the peaceful Libra rising that I am, but that was not okay. I'm still mad about that. And with Mars retrograde, this is a time to feel our feelings, feel our anger, and really enforce the expectations that we have of friendships moving forward around that is a particular issue that I will no longer withstand. Like I will stand up for myself in that arena, or I'll cut those friends out of my life. You know, Mars is around severing. So some of us could be severing some people if you are finding that they are bringing some weird energy around you. Because I do feel there could be hater energy in your midst, okay? And this could show up in a lot of different ways. Even if it's not a close friend to you, 11th house also deals with colleagues as well as your social media following. And so if someone has an issue with you and they have no reason to have an issue with you, it's kind of that energy around they might be jealous of you, especially with Mars opposite Pluto. And sometimes jealousy shows up in different ways. Like sometimes jealousy shows up around people being very bitter and just kind of hating on everything that we do or just sending us a weird vibe. And sometimes people who want to be us, they tap into that around obsessing over us and trying to emulate, even with Mars opposite Pluto in the 5th house, trying to bite your style, trying to bite your creativity, trying to do what you do. Some of you could have an energy where there's a certain thing that you did on social media and now there's copycats. And for some of you, this could be frustrating. It's like you're just trying to express yourself and do your thing, and you could feel like at this time there's haters or people trying to compete with you or people trying to bring you down. And I want to let you know that anyone who tries to bring you down considers themselves in some way beneath you. I know it's hard to remind ourselves of this because it could be so annoying when people are copying us, but truly imitation is the highest form of flattery. And this is a time to really pick your battles. Like, don't feel like you need to fight with everybody who's trying to bite your style during this time. Just know that's what happens when you're innovating in some regard, or creating or expressing yourself in some regard. And there's a need to not let too much of your energy be siphoned by people who are trying to compete with you. This could even be at the workplace or colleagues or things of that nature, feeling like there's more squabbles or just a more competitive vibe in the air, and you're like, I just want to keep the peace. What's happening? And then that particularly focuses around your career in the latter portion of this transit. So from January 6th to February 23rd, Mars will then be retrograde in Cancer, which is your 10th house. And so this could be an energy around battles with authority figures, battles at work, even battles maintaining your reputation. Definitely an important time to not let impulses take over in regards to what it is that you're posting about, or even moves that you're making. This would not be a time that I would recommend switching jobs. This would not be a time that I would recommend impulsively, lashing out at your boss or your authority figure. You might be feeling frustrated, and it's important with Mars retrograde to allow yourself to feel those feelings, but don't allow them to take over. And for some of you, the story is a little bit different. Some of you could really be working what it is that you want to build towards, your hopes and dreams for the future. With Mars retrograde being a time that we typically feel low on motivation, a lot of you could be looking at what it is that you want to build or create within your future and recognizing that your heart isn't in it. You're looking at your career path and you're recognizing, this isn't making me happy any longer. I'm feeling, yes, not motivated because it's Mars retrograde, but it's signaling a bigger issue that I'm just not here anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And some of you have been fighting and battling and hustling, whether you've been applying or you've just been putting a lot of energy. And a lot of you are like really reworking, what will make me happy? What did I used to want? Retrograde can deal with the past, 11th house is the future. So it's this interesting energy around when I was little, how did I see my future? And do I desire to invest my energy in that direction, to reconnect with those sides of myself? If you are a Virgo ascendant and or Mars will be retrograde within the 12th and 11th houses of your natal chart, this message is for you. And I gotta keep it real with you. Typically Virgo risings are the busybodies of the zodiac, always up to something, but I would deeply recommend for you to take it easy during this time. Okay. And the reason I say this is that the focus for you this Mars retrograde around conserving your energy, reallocating your priorities, picking your battles, for you this is focused around the 12th house of what's hidden and the 11th house of hopes and dreams for the future. Let's get into it. So the journey begins December 6th. And when Mars stations retrograde, it does so in your 12th house. We've got the planet of our energy in the hidden house. So you might be looking to pull from your reserves to keep yourself going, to keep yourself motivated, and you might be like, there's nothing there. Like, where'd it go? Where did my motivation run off to? And like I said, Virgos are typically pretty go, go, go. And this might be a time that your body, mind, and soul is asking you to slow down. Will you listen? That's up to you. 12th house, beyond the hidden house, it's also the house of self-undoing. So if you don't listen to the whispers of your body, this can be a time that you're your own worst enemy. You overexert yourself, you push yourself beyond your own limits. And so see where it is that you can do less, particularly in the first portion of this journey from December 6th to January 6th. See where it is that you can rest. See where it is that you can process. Because for a lot of you, you're fighting battles on the 5D or on the spiritual plane. And what I mean by that is your dreams could be more active. You could find that your healing is taking more energy from you. Some of you could have pushed things that you're mad about into the crevices of your subconscious, and you might find it surfaces during this time. And sometimes when we're processing, when we're dealing with something, even if it's showing up to an emotional level or a spiritual level, our body still has to integrate what is transpiring. So if you're feeling like you're drained and depleted and you're like, I have no reason to feel this drained, it can be that you're healing from something or you're processing from something or you're going through something spiritually. And it's important to allow your body the space to recuperate and to integrate these shifts that could be transpiring. Because for a lot of you, there's things that you are mad about, that you're recognizing how mad you are about it. There's things that you've pushed into the crevices of your mind. You didn't have time to deal with it. You distracted yourself within the next project, and that anger might be leaking to the surface now. It's showing up in angry dreams and showing up in dreams where you're fighting something. It's showing up around feeling infuriated by small things. Again, what we push into the shadows and the crevices of our psyche grows. And with Mars retrograde, you might have felt like you outrun your demons, but this can be a time that your demons catch up, and it might ask you to really prioritize energy around your own healing and your own subconscious and not being your own biggest hater, because 12th house is the house of self-undoing. So some of you have been trying to outrun your problems, thus adding to your own destruction in some way. Some of you have been investing energy into things that are ultimately creating more harm than good. And Mars retrograde may make you look at that. I also see a theme that's coming alive around haters for you all, because 12th house has to deal with secret hidden enemies, and 11th house has to deal with, friendships, colleagues, social media following. Like some of you, it might be visible, it might be beneath the surface, but some of you are going to get a vibe during this time that there's certain people in your orbit or in your energy who are not necessarily your friends. And it's important to trust your instincts around where you're feeling more inclined to have a little bit more of a wall up around certain connections. Now, it doesn't even need to be close friends or anything of that nature. It could be mutuals online. It could even be enemies from the past, like someone that you're beefing with from the past, that you just start thinking about them and you're like, gosh, I can feel their energy. 12th house is very woo-woo. It's very much how we feel other people's energy. Oftentimes when you pick up on someone's energy, it's for a reason. Like they might be thinking about you or thinking about reaching out to you, or even in some instances making a burner account in order to mess with you. Like some of you could be dealing with trolls and things of that nature, which for some might be someone from the past. So what I would say with that is just, if someone enters your brain, you're suddenly feeling their energy, trust your instincts on that. Like if you've ever thought of someone and then they text you right after, like we pick up on energy. That's why if someone just randomly enters your brain and you're seeing their car and you're seeing their birthday, it's like you're picking up on their energy. And so if you're randomly picking up on someone's energy and you're feeling that they don't have great intentions for you, or it's somebody who you've known to have beef with in the past, their energy could be around you. Again, they could be creeping on your social media page because Mars will be retrograde in 11th house, which has to deal with our audiences, with our following. It could be trying to plot some sort of revenge. So I would just say it's important during this time, just ensure that you are spiritually protected. If you do anything online, just ensure that you seal off your energy beforehand. Have rituals that help you ground you into your own energetic space. Exercise dominion over your space. You can always return energy back to sender. You do not need to take it on. And so I just suggest be a little on guard. Even if this doesn't show up online, like with certain friends, with certain colleagues, where you just get an instinct where you're like, you're not really a fan of me now, are you? Like with the energy of Mars, it just could be, you're actually an enemy of mine. You're actually a competitor of mine. Like when Mars re-enters your 11th house from January 6th to February 23rd, it will do so in the sign Cancer. Intuition, trust your intuition. If you're connecting with someone, you're like, ugh, getting a weird vibe, feeling inclined to be a little bit more protective and defensive. Again, you do not need to live your life in fear, but Mars retrograde does ask us sometimes to have a little bit more of an armor, especially if intuitively we're feeling this energy around, I'm not feeling so inclined to open up to this person or to let this person into my orbit. Because like I said, with Mars retrograde, especially when it starts in the 12th house, you could just find that you're a little bit more drained and depleted. So you just don't have time for weird energy within your world. Other themes, some of you can be dealing with conflicts from the past with your friendships. There could be a legitimate argument that has transpired that you need to address during this time, or it could just be an add up of a lot of different things that have created resentment. And this could be a time in which those added resentments, you do blow up. Mars will be retrograde in Cancer in your 11th house. Mars does not like being in Cancer. It could be a passive aggressive energy where we say it's fine, we say it's fine, we say it's fine, then the final straw, we explode because it wasn't fine. But again, it took us a lot to get to that place. And with the energy of Mars retrograde, it really makes us contemplate, are there ways of sticking up for myself around my friendships that don't lead to this sort of result? Can be the focus here. Some of you could be potentially investing energy in friendships. You could be investing energy in communities, maybe even communities from the past where you had previously withdrew your energy from. Some of you could also be contemplating what it is that you want to create, your hopes and dreams, even contemplating the younger versions of yourself and what the younger versions of yourself wanted for your future, and contemplating if the desire is still there, if the motivation is still there to build towards those soul-centered visions. So my loves, I am truly of the belief that to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And I hope that you can feel my intention throughout the course of this video that I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not saying everybody's going to try to fight you and battle you during this Mars retrograde, that you're just going to feel angry and bitter and resentful the entirety of the time. But what I am saying is that it is a time to be intentional with your energy, to rework how it is that you navigate conflict, and to really contemplate what you desire, what your heart is in, what your soul longs for, and potentially use this time to reallocate your priorities, to put more of your energy towards what genuinely lights you up, what nourishes your soul. So I'd love to hear your intentions moving into Mars retrograde. Have you already been feeling these themes? Are you nervous about this transit? What particularly are you worried about? Please let me know below, or let me know over on my Instagram, which is at Haley Comet Astrology. My TikTok is also the same if you want to connect with me over there. I love doing these all sign forecasts so much. I know I haven't done too many of them here on my channel, but I wanted to support you with all of the information that you need to know this Mars retrograde. Do let me know if there are other videos that you would love to see on my channel. But until we meet again, drink lots of water and stay cosmic.